Good evening. Welcome to our meeting. Our meeting is being televised this evening and will be available as a webcast on this. Committee members and presenters, please speak clearly, and if answering questions, staff should come to the table to respond so that our online viewers can hear the response. You received a service profile packet for each of the areas that will be presented tonight. The blue insert is the historical and represents the performance information for the service area over the past 4 years. The white portion of the document gives current information about the service area as well as performance measures and targets for the next 4 years. Staff will provide a brief overview of each service area, and there will be approximately 20 minutes for questions and discussion. While staff has identified measures and targets for their service areas, these are not the only considerations or measures used by staff in their service areas, but are used in conjunction with a range of other best practices to evaluate and improve service. At the end of each service profile presentation, you will be asked to approve the current service profile, including the performance measures and strategies with targets. Does that make sense to everyone? Cool. I'll keep a queue for questions, so just raise your hand if you want to ask questions, and I'll keep a list. And we'll get started. So first up, we have civic leadership and collaboration services and human rights and neighborhood involvement.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mia Carriaga. I'm the division manager in the city manager's office.
I'm Jennifer Yettis Vanderhagen, the manager of the Human Rights and Neighborhood Involvement Office.
And we're here tonight to share with you a look at our services. You received service profiles for civic leadership and collaboration, as well as human rights and neighborhood involvement. All of these services fall under the umbrella of the city manager's office. And so for purposes of this presentation, we're going to share with you an overview of the work that we do in the city manager's office. So we've combined these two topics for tonight's meeting. Our goal is that by the time we finish this presentation, you understand the city manager's organizational structure, who our customers are, what services we provide to the community. We're going to review the FY17 Budget Committee actions and let you know where we're at with implementation of those. And then we'll let you know of future opportunities and challenges for our division. So this is a look at the structure of the city manager's office. Our division reports to Christy Hammett, the Central Services Director. And within our division, we have programs for sustainability, human rights and neighborhood involvement, intergovernmental relations, mayor and council support, and communications. The spay-neuter clinic is also housed in the city manager's office, but for tonight's purposes, we aren't going to discuss the spay-neuter clinic. They're actually included in another service profile, which will be presented next year. And the city manager, assistant city manager, and city attorney's offices all live in our budget, and tonight we're focusing on the services that the CMO provides to the community, and so those are all of those listed on the right. We have 3 categories of customers, and the first is the city organization. We support all employees in various components of their work, and we also provide central services for some functions of the organization. We also work with partner agencies such as eWeb, Lane Council of Governments, City of Springfield, and others to implement our organization's work. Our next set of customers are elected officials and appointed officials, and that includes, of course, the mayor and city council. There are 8 city councilors that are elected by geographical area in the city, and a mayor that is elected at large. The city manager's office staffs 2 commissions in particular, the Sustainability Commission and Human Rights Commission. We also provide general support to all of the boards and commissions within the organization. But these are those that we're responsible for staffing and providing work plan support to. And finally, the community at large. We include in this category neighborhood associations. The Office of Neighborhood Involvement is in the city manager's office, and we support them. The general public, of course, in providing engagement and communication to them. And then the public that seeks our specific services, and we'll talk about some of those as we go through the presentation. For today's purposes, we are going to spend our time talking about our external facing services, so those last 2 columns, the service that we provide to elected and appointed officials and the community. The service we provide can be broken into 3 broad categories, and those are the triple bottom line, engagement, and support to the mayor and council. We're going to talk about each of these, what they are, and give you a few examples of the work that we do. We don't have time tonight to talk about everything that happens within our division. We do a lot of different things, but tonight we'll be giving you some examples so you can get a sense of the work that we do that touches the community. So first up is the triple bottom line, and our office is responsible for and really focuses on helping the organization think about sustainability. So taking into consideration when making decisions and implementing services and programs, the environment, economic prosperity, and social equity. Of course, this happens throughout the organization, but we have services that are specific to this area. And those services that really focus on this area are sustainability, HRNI, and intergovernmental relations.
One example of one of the ways that we implement the triple bottom line is by working very closely with our partnership with the Eugene Police Department. We're grateful for this partnership because it allows us to develop an annual hate and bias report. The hate and bias report captures criminal incidents and non-criminal incidents of hate and bias that are reported either to the police department or to our office directly. One of the things that you'll notice in the service profile is that we actually believe that if these numbers go up, it'll mean we're doing our job better, and that's because nationally, the amount of hate and bias crimes that are reported to police agencies is as low as, or as few as 25% of them are reported. So we believe that if we saw an increase, it would mean we were doing stronger outreach in the community to make sure that they felt safe in reporting. Also, a safe community is a more prosperous community and allows us to meet our sustainability goals if people feel secure in their communities.
So another aspect of our work that touches on multiple points in the triple bottom line, social equity and economic prosperity, is the city's Rest Stop program. The Rest Stop program was started a few years ago when council enacted an ordinance which allows for places to be established throughout the community with really specific guidelines where folks who are in a transitional state can stay on a temporary basis. So our community has a lot of services for low-income housing and some services for emergency shelter. The Rest Stop program really fills a gap for those that fall in between those 2 categories. So we have 5 rest stops right now and 2 operators that we partner with to run those in the Community Supported Shelters and Nightingale Health Sanctuary. And they are home to about 20 people each. Over the course of the Rest Stop program, they have housed around 200 people, most of which have moved on to some kind of permanent housing. Another component of our triple bottom line work are our climate efforts, and these documents aren't up there for you to read, but they're just examples of our written plans that speak to the city's efforts around climate and reducing our greenhouse gas emissions and overall environmental footprint. On the far left is the Climate Recovery Ordinance. We were one of the first cities in the country to adopt an ordinance that formalized our climate goals. In 2016, the council updated those goals, and so that document is dated 2016. It's the update. Our office is responsible for helping the organization and community implement the Climate Recovery Ordinance. We don't have a lot of programs in our office that actually touch the community and community services, but we do have the ability and expertise to help other departments understand the ordinance and figure out what they can do to reduce their emissions. Our next focus for this work will be on bringing the community along, updating the Climate, Energy, and Action Plan with the community in a way that the community can understand and implement that work. So we'll need to be bringing the community and businesses to the table to do that, and that's the next step in this work. Our next category is engagement, and of course, engagement doesn't live solely in the city manager's office. All departments engage with the community and work on engagement in various ways. But when we think about it, we're really thinking about how we communicate with the community, how we create transparency in the city's work, and in particular in the city manager's office and with our elected officials. how we increase participation in all of our city processes, and especially those that relate to the mayor and council, and how we can be inclusive in the work that we're doing, both on an ongoing basis and for one-time activities. And the folks that work on engagement in our office are the Office of Human Rights and Neighborhood Involvement, the Mayor and Council Support Team, and then of course communications.
One of the ways that we partner with community to do engagement is by offering opportunities through community organizations to provide training on human rights and equity work happening around the city. So here's a photo of a series of community conversations we held over 5 months. We had over 100 people in attendance at each of those discussing human rights and equity work and how that relates to our community in Eugene.
Another resource for engagement is our digital presence, and here are a couple of examples. On the far right, we have a snapshot of our Twitter account. On the left, Instagram, and here in the middle, Facebook. And this has become increasingly important because research consistently indicates that low-income and minority populations access information via their mobile devices. So each of these has a mobile presence and allows us to share information with people pretty easily and reach a large number of folks. Also in the category of digital engagement, our website was updated earlier this year. This is the new City Council newsletter, which folks can access or link to in neighborhood newsletters or other ways. It's a really good source of information about what's happening in the city, and the City Council reads that, and we send that to an interested parties list as well. On the left, we have a snapshot of our new webcast system. So when council came back from summer break, we launched a new system which allows folks to watch webcasts from their mobile devices. This was really important. We were getting a lot of feedback that people wanted to watch meetings from their phones. And on the first night that we launched this, we had 400 hits to this site. So there were at least 400 people watching the meeting that night. And that was before we had advertised it or anything. So it's been really popular and convenient way for folks to access meetings without having to come down to Harris Hall in the Public Service Building.
Another really important form of engagement that our office supports is in neighborhood involvement, specifically in supporting neighborhood associations. Neighborhood associations play a really critical role in sharing planning decisions and having neighbors participate in deciding some of the direction of those processes. They also offer the opportunity for community building among neighbors and for people to think about issues that are facing their community either within their geographical borders or beyond. In 2015, we had 23 recognized neighborhood associations, 15 of those being active and 5 being semi-active. And then 3 are inactive. And one of the roles that we play in our organization is helping those associations to build the skill sets and providing the support that they need for semi-active and inactive neighborhoods to become active again. One of the programs that's related to that is our neighborhood matching grant programs. Something that we're really excited and proud of is that this program was established in 2000 by City Council. And we have invested a little bit over $600,000 into the community through this program, funding over 100 projects all across the city. But the really exciting thing is that the community has in turn matched $1.3 million in either donated supplies or time, different ways that they measure their own match to this project. And last year, that was the city funds that were leveraged were $20,000, and the community matched $42,000. So we see a really deep investment from neighborhood associations and organizations planning these in providing this resource to their communities. Our office also is home to the Rights Assistance Program. So if somebody is part of a protected class and feels like their rights have been violated or they've been discriminated against in housing, employment, city contracts, or public accommodations, they can file a complaint with our office. We track those complaints to see if there are any trends that are happening that we could be working with other agencies or organizations to solve. And then the other thing we do is provide people with direct referrals. I really like that this is the picture that we have because we really do get just about any story walking through our door of people who want to make sure that they understand the rights and resources they have access to, and our staff is constantly answering questions and helping people navigate fairly complicated systems.
So we're going to move on to mayor and council support. And the support that the city manager's office provides to the mayor and council is broad and varied. We provide policy support, so when council is interested in pursuing a policy that doesn't have a clean landing home in the organization, the city manager's office will often support that. We provide logistical support to the mayor and council, so everything from calendars to actual meeting support to travel arrangements. We ensure that council meets legal requirements, so meeting requirements, advertising requirements, and requirements for elections. And then finally, we act as ambassadors for the elected officials. We'll often accompany them to events or represent them at various community events. So in order to support the mayor and council, this does take our full team. Everybody contributes to the support of the mayor and council in one way or another. We have a very talented group, and they are very vested in making sure that our elected officials have everything they need to carry out their work. So our first example of the kinds of work that we do under mayor and council support, this was a summit of West Coast mayors held last December. And this was an unexpected event for us to support. It was planned in the fall to happen in the winter. And the mayors of Los Angeles, Portland, San Francisco, Seattle, and Eugene came together to talk about two emerging and important issues, homelessness and housing, as well as climate change. So our staff prepared materials for the mayor that she could share with the other mayors, our best practices and programs that we have in place under those two categories, and also accompanied her to the event in order to provide technical expertise at the table when they were discussing these topics. Another component of mayor and council support is meeting support. And meeting support entails meeting legal requirements, providing minutes after the fact, preparing agenda materials, and then of course the actual meetings. This was a meeting that we held at South Eugene High School. It was a full council meeting, and as far as we know, it's the first full council meeting held off-site and outside of the council chamber or Harris Hall. And it was really well attended. The topic was South Willamette. It was a public forum on that topic. And as you can see, there were a lot of folks there. And so our staff does everything from setting up the room to making sure the elected officials have what they need, working with Metro TV so that the meeting is webcast and telecast, and then of course doing everything afterwards. So following up on items and creating minutes, which meet our legal requirements. And this next component, these are the voters pamphlet, and this just speaks to a part of our work that a lot of folks aren't familiar with. So we are responsible for helping local candidates register, and then we produce a voters pamphlet for local initiatives and candidates. So these are the most recent. One was produced in the spring of 2016, and then this is the current voters pamphlet that's out right now for the election next week. And this is a really important piece. We work with state elections office. There are state and other guidelines that we have to follow. This is done by the city recorder's office, and the city recorder is responsible for all of the city's formal documents and archives as well. So now we'd like to let you know where we're at with some of the actions that the Budget Committee took last spring. There were three motions that were passed by the Budget Committee and later the City Council that impacted our division. And the first was an increase in funding to our Sister Cities program. The increase was $40,000 and the program is now at a total of $50,000. We have 4 sister cities, and we're in current conversations with them to determine how we can best allocate those funds. So because the funding went up pretty significantly, we want to revisit the service and make sure that we're providing funds to them in a way that's helpful. Over the course of the Budget Committee conversation, we also heard that it's really important that the city has resource to properly host delegations when they visit Eugene. So we'll be talking about what funds we may retain in the city manager's office so that we have the bandwidth financially to provide a really good Eugene experience when other countries visit our community. And then the next item is neighborhood support. So there were two related to this, an increase to outreach funding of $55,000 and an increase to the matching grants program, which Jennifer talked about previously, in the amount of $20,000. And that program overall is now at a total of over $100,000. The Budget Committee did express interest in having us revisit the way that we allocate the funding that each neighborhood receives. So we previously allocated funds by population of each neighborhood. We're going to continue to do that. However, for those neighborhoods that use all of the funds allocated by population, there will be some additional funds available at the end of the year if they would like to produce additional publications for their neighborhood or hold extra events. They can apply for those funds. And then the final action was to provide one-time funding to the Rest Stop program in the amount of $25,000 if there are extra funds available in December during the first supplemental budget process. So this has not been approved by council yet. However, we've been having some conversation with the Rest Stop providers so that we're ready in the event that those funds are approved to think about how we'll spend those on the Rest Stop program. And finally, we want to let you know what we're thinking about for the future. We have both upcoming challenges and opportunities. And the first is staff recruitments. We have several vacancies on our team right now, and because we do a lot of cross-training, we do have some depth in some areas, but we really, that's a challenge at the moment, is to make sure that we have a full team in order to properly support the city manager, mayor, and council, and the organization. In January, we will have new elected officials, a new Ward 1 councilor, and a new mayor, and so our team will be responsible for to help onboard them. So we'll be working on that in the near future. In 2021, we know that Eugene will be hosting the World Track and Field Championships, and our office is helping both the community and the organization prepare for that event. We're thinking about both our relationship with the University of Oregon and Tracktown, and we're also thinking about what will happen outside of the fence. And so our office is providing facilitation support and helping build relationships in the community that will make sure that we're set up to do that in a really great way. Right now, the city manager's office is housed in two different spaces. One was the photo that you saw when we talked about rights assistance. So the atrium building, which is kitty corner from this building, and then most of us are housed in the public service building. We're leasing space from the county. And so a continued challenge is to think about how we can all work together and best provide service to the community in a way that's not confusing to them. If we let someone know that there's a service in the city manager's office, it needs to be clear about where they should go to seek that service. The climate recovery ordinance is a major piece of work that we'll continue to work on. As I said earlier, we are thinking about implementation, and in particular, community implementation. Right now, we're recruiting for a new sustainability analyst, and one of the first things that they'll be tasked with is talking with the community about how we can best implement in a way that is reasonable for our community. Homelessness is an ongoing challenge for our entire organization. The city manager's office supports all of the departments that work on homelessness, and then we do have some efforts that are specific to our office, like the Rest Stop program, and some temporary initiatives such as Operation 365, which was a program that helped house homeless veterans over the year of 2015. So we continue to explore options like that and work with our partners, Lane County, and the city of Springfield and others, to ensure that as a community we're addressing the issue. And finally, we're always thinking about engagement and what's next. The digital world is constantly changing, our community is constantly changing, and so we want to be mindful of the fact that our business practices need to change so that we can continue to be transparent and inclusive for our entire community, and that's going to look different in a few years than it does right now. And so we're always trying to stay in front of that and think about that. And that's all we have, and we have time for questions.
Thank you. Anyone have questions, comments? Garrett.
So my question is, in regards to the communications point, other than the Facebook, Twitter, website pieces, are there other noticeable efforts like PR releases or something like that that go out?
Yes, so we do have a communications team. And Jan Bowman is here. She's our expert for sure. But we do media releases on a regular basis. And then departments also have public information officers that provide media releases specific to departmental work. So that's one component. We have a multitude of interested parties email lists on any number of topics. So we manage one for the climate recovery ordinance, and we manage one for City Hall and downtown planning. And we regularly release information to that email group so they can keep up to speed on upcoming events and happenings. So,
Okay.
and those are just a couple. You can walk into any office, including the city manager's office, and read the budget document or Envision Eugene or the transportation system plan. We try to make all of our bodies of work readily available for folks.
Thank you.
Scott?
Along the same lines there, and I really love the engagement, and I heard the 400 hits during the council meeting. So I was wondering if you could expand on the number of hits on a normal month for the website, and then the volume of Facebook comments there, and what kind of trends you're seeing in that degree of outreach. Right.
Let's see. Well, as Mia mentioned, I think in the presentation, we upgraded the website and launched the new mobile-friendly site in January. And the number of, the amount of traffic has really gone, really increased quite a lot since January. So from, say, December of 2015, we were down about 100,000 traffic and up to over almost 200,000 in July of this year. So that's gone up quite a bit, and that's over the year, or I mean over the month, sorry, monthly traffic on the website. We've got a new staff person working in social media. And again, we have people working in the city manager's office and then other people working all throughout all the departments. So this is, that is regarding the city's web page. That's comprehensive information. The social media stuff that, excuse me, I'm referring to here has to do with our main accounts, but then there are also our accounts related for Parks and Open Space and for Recreation. They all have their own. But we do have a new person in the city manager's office who's working a lot on social media and has done a lot to improve. We launched an Instagram in August, and that's gone, been really started out at about 45 and is up to almost a couple hundred now in terms of people. The Facebook page is something we've had for a while. We've had about a 32% increase over just in the last couple of months. So it's really improving. She's doing a lot of work and reaching out, and our Twitter accounts are increasing too. So I could provide more specifics, but.
So it looks like the outreach is working and the engagement.
It is. It is.
That was 100,000 to 200,000 hits earlier.
Yeah.
The difference.
On web.
Website redesign.
Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And if we were interested in taking a look at those, what would be the best way to do that? The metrics that you were referring to?
Well, we just have recently prepared these reports, and we haven't really posted them, but we should get that up on the web so that people could get a hold of that. And I'd be happy to send a link out. We can get that done in the next few days and send a link out to this group. It'd be fine to do.
Josh?
Well, first of all, let me say I really appreciate a bunch of the updates, and let me just echo back a couple of these things. I really appreciate what you were saying about the Rest Stop program, hugely important. Just more broadly, I would say I really appreciated the November updates in 2014 and 2015 from Stephanie Jennings on homelessness efforts more broadly. I do think it's tricky to pull individual stories like this out of that context, so anytime you can sort of set it in that broader context, it's impressive all the things the city is doing. Also, I was at the Hate and Bias report release a few weeks ago, and I really appreciate the emphasis that the city manager's office has given that and the support you've given to it. I have, and then I also helped paint the street mural on the southern part of College Hill
Oh, yeah.
that had matching grant support. And that's a good place for me to start my constructive criticisms. I actually have heard a lot of feedback that program has pretty onerous paperwork for people who are not used to doing paperwork. So I think we have to figure out what are the metrics really for reaching people other than total amount of money spent, total projects, like how inclusive is that? So I really want to focus my comments on performance measures, because I'm struggling to see, I don't really see performance measures here that do anything to capture the depth and breadth of engagement. So, for example, there's nothing in the performance measures that gets at, assessing the efficacy of the website redesign. There's nothing in the performance measures that looks at the effectiveness of social media, and I've just anecdotally and talking to other people, heard, seen lots of activity, and I believe that the numbers are going way up, but it seems like something there should be in the performance measures. And also we've had, and without sort of commenting on any of the details of them, but we've had a few kind of, I would call them blow-ups about civic engagement lately, and people feeling they weren't contacted. And I see plenty of evidence that the city has made good faith efforts to reach out to neighbors in a bunch of areas. But we don't have any metrics here either to assess the extent to which we're actually reaching people when we're doing, say, neighborhood planning exercises. So I feel like the sum total of all that stuff being missing is actually a pretty big deal, because we've heard lots of complaints from people, and it's very difficult to assess the legitimacy of those complaints or the success of the city's efforts. I mean, when people say they haven't been engaged, I don't know, to some extent you have to take them at face value, but you shouldn't only be taking people at face value, either complaining citizens or city staff. We should have some way of assessing those things, and it seems like that really should reside in the city manager's office. So that would be helpful. And then the final thing on this, just with website outreach, we have all sorts of different lists that you can be a part of, but it's very difficult to know all of those different lists. I know several state agencies, DEQ comes to mind, manage a whole bunch of different interested parties lists, and you can kind of see and manage all of your subscriptions simultaneously. So that technology exists out there. I've seen that in a number of settings, and it's just something like that actually is a way of alerting people to those interested parties lists. I've had plenty of people get sent emails and then share them with me, and I'll say, who's on that list? And they'll say, I have no idea, and I don't even remember how I got on it. So I think it's too black boxy in that respect, but we want that to be as transparent as possible. And I'll wait for the second round to talk about the climate recovery.
Want to respond to some of those things?
Sure. I just wanted to speak to your comments around engagement and tracking engagement and whether or not we know folks feel engaged. So the city manager's office used to be responsible for several community-wide surveys that did actually survey folks about whether or not they knew what was happening at the city and whether or not they felt engaged. We've moved away from that in the last few years because there are a lot of activities in the departments that are occurring where they are actually putting their fingers on the pulse of the community specific to services. So an example is the Parks and Open Space and Recreation Plan and the outreach work that they did to learn from folks what's important when you visit a city park. What is important? What are the most important elements to you? That's just one example. Envision Eugene, of course, has done a lot of survey work. So what we are learning more recently is that while those are valuable and very important to each of those services, the community does want to know how we're doing as a whole. And so we'll be working over the next year or so to think about that again and how we might have a more centralized effort to gauge our overall engagement rather than service-specific engagement. We're mindful of that.
But no performance measures in that area.
True.
Okay, I guess I would say, and just put it out there for discussion, that seems at least as important to me as the two customer satisfaction performance measures that we have here. You know what I mean? And I don't know exactly what it is, but I mean, just what Jan was presenting about sort of the, just even simple metrics. I don't know, seems some of that lends itself to, at least, it's a partial story, but it's quantitative and we're gonna have it anyway. Might be helpful to have.
Yeah, I think one of the difficulties is until we know what the tool that we're going to use will be, it's hard to know what we may be measuring. So, you know, we could make a very general, we could develop a very general performance measure around engagement, but until we know what tools we'll be using to actually get an indication from Eugenians whether or not they feel engaged, it's hard to develop that, but I'm open to your ideas.
Well, and just as a clarification, I mean, when will this service profile show back up again on the budget committee work plan?
4 years.
Yeah, so that seems regrettable that we're starting a bunch of these efforts now, and we'll probably know a ton more, just by the start of the next fiscal year. And that's when we would want to have performance measures. So I don't know how you want to
Is there
share.
a strategy that addresses measure, or, I don't remember all the strategies. Is there a strategy that addresses that? No?
Not that specifically, and I don't want to speak for the city manager or the executive team, but I will say that
Actually, it'd be
once
very
we,
exciting to see you.
engagement is something that we're all thinking about. Engagement is something that the entire organization is thinking about. We've heard very clearly from the community that we need to do something differently, and I would imagine that as a plan develops, that would probably come back to the full budget committee in some way.
So we can have a discussion about that here in terms of what we want to see in the service profile. If people have comments, I would suggest we have a small discussion, and what we can do is make a recommendation we can approve the service profile, and then with the recommendation that a measure be developed to measure engagement as the plan is developed. If people have comments or thoughts about that, I saw Garrett's hand, and then Jill. Garrett, do you have?
Well, I really want to reinforce how articulately Josh put everything. That's really the core of what I was trying to get to, is that I'd be very interested in seeing, making sure that this isn't the next time this conversation comes up is before the track trials, which is kind of what we're trying to work towards. So I'd like to, if anything else, just reinforce the concept that maybe we come up with some sort of continued conversation, particularly around community engagement.
Jill?
So Mia, you were saying, first of all, I think the website looks great, by the way, and that for the meetings on the phone, that's just great. I mean, it's the city's gotten very techy, so it's great. As far as engagement goes, so you're saying we're working on a plan. So what I'm hearing is that you're working on a plan based on community comment, and then once you figure out a plan, then you will set your performance measures off of that. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, we recognize that there is a need,
Got it,
and we don't know what it looks like to meet that need yet.
got it.
But we would be more than happy to develop performance measures related to that once we know.
But you're working on some kind of big plan. Is that the idea based on what
There isn't a formal effort yet,
Okay.
but there's.
You've got community comment, so that's the first step.
Right.
And then once that happens, then there's going to be at some point, planning to figure out how to implement the system based on what the community said. Is that kind of really, I'm just trying to, and then at that point, once that's determined, then performance measures would be implemented. I mean, what I'm saying is, it seems to me we can't have performance measures before we have a plan. I mean, like you said, you could throw out a couple and say, here's a few, but they're probably not real ones unless there's an actual plan. Would that be correct thinking?
Yes, that's true, and I really don't want to minimize the engagement work that other departments do.
Sure, right.
There are so many efforts by staff. I think everyone that works for the city organization thinks about how they can best engage the customers that they work with, both on a day-to-day basis and as they're developing larger scale plans.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important piece, and I don't know that a performance measure for our division could necessarily capture that too, but certainly based on this conversation, we recognize that it's important to think about.
Josh?
Is there any other place in the city where those different, more decentralized efforts, which I acknowledge, and I appreciate you reminding me of the one on parks in particular, which I'd seen detail on, it was very impressive, actually. Is there any other place in the city where that's being collected, so we do have a bigger, broader view of the quantity and quality of engagement?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can find out.
I mean, I'm guessing if you don't know, just a wild guess, it's not happening because it would logically be in the CMO, wouldn't it?
Could be.
Okay. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that this seems like we're missing something if we are not knitting it together at some point. So I would love for us to have some sort of recommendation on that point.
I'd just love to respond to your question about neighborhood matching grants. In terms of the onerous paperwork, there is some paperwork that goes into it because we want to make sure we're great stewards of public money. One of the things that happens, though, is that our staff spends a lot of time on the phone, over email, and in person helping people fill out those applications. So if anyone has a question, they are offered an in-person meeting or by phone coaching to be able to fill out that paperwork.
That's great. That's a good answer that I'll be able to give to people, so they don't feel like there's an extra hurdle, or if there is, that they're getting help.
Absolutely.
That's excellent. Thank you.
John?
Looking at your closeout strategies, the vast majority of them are not applicable. It appears that you changed direction since the last time you presented, to this group. What was that direction change? Was it the surveying that you were talking about? It looks like you laid out a plan and then went in a different direction.
The survey was certainly a part of it, and also the nature of the way that the city manager's office works has changed pretty dramatically. So human rights and neighborhood involvement wasn't formerly a part of the CMO. We've had a change in leadership. I'm new to the role. I've been in the role for 3 years. And I'd say that one of the things about the city manager's office is that we're constantly changing. We don't have the luxury of having long-term strategic plans because the nature of our work it really depends on what the council is thinking about and what the community is thinking about. So it's a little more difficult for us to have performance measures that reflect the types of work that we do because of the nature of the work and the fact that we work in a very, very fluid environment.
And that's fine, and I guess it probably ties in with what Josh was asking is, then how can you say definitively that the last 4 years has been successful or not, without some sort of, somebody saying, good job.
Yeah.
Or we achieved the goal that we set out to achieve,
That question's an
and
ego.
moving forward,
Yeah.
how do you know you're being successful, in the next year or 4 years or whatever period you want to choose?
I think you just summarized. Yeah, I think you just summarized the challenge of working in the city manager's office and the talent and resilience that it takes to work in the city manager's office, and I commend the folks behind me that do, because we really can't. We base our success. Our primary job is to make sure that the mayor and council have everything they need to make decisions for our community and move our community in the direction that they want to head. So, our definition of success is if they're able to make those decisions with clear information. It's really it can be that simple.
Any other questions, discussion?
I think I have a final comment.
All right, Garrett.
So, sort of to second a lot of the underlying tones here, I really appreciate a lot of what's going on here. Coming as a citizen and having my own frustrations with disconnects maybe with the city, and then knowing the individuals that work on it, such as yourselves, that do a really good job of doing exactly what you're supposed to do. There's, for me, a very obvious disconnect somewhere there where everything's being done, but there's still something missing. And that was the big reason why I wanted to be a part of this committee, was because maybe I can somehow contribute to helping act as some sort of glue between those things. So I just want to make sure that you guys know that you have the full support of everyone here, and we love what you're doing. Of course, I'm speaking for myself here when I say, and I want to keep seeing where possible or potential gaps are that can further our efforts together. So, that's it.
Josh?
I agree. And I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer and go back into the details, but we have one other topic that appeared on a few slides. But just to reiterate what Garrett said, I mean, yeah, this is all about, I've spent a little bit of time listening to the community recently, and I would say the more tools we can have to do that more effectively, the better. And I think we don't have them yet. And so that's why I'm sort of pushing to make sure that it's actually how we identify the performance measures of the city manager's office. I think that is in service of council very directly. So the climate recovery ordinance. Let me just sort of push here, and it may or may not be appropriate, but I don't see any performance measures related to that, and I didn't hear any specific time frame. Oh, I've called Ethan to the table implicitly. I haven't heard sort of a sense of when anything would happen. And, you know, we're more than 2 years out from the passage of the climate recovery ordinance, and we've done good goal setting and target setting and other things, but now I'm sensing we're down staff, and I haven't heard a time frame, and I may just have missed it, but time frame on the updating the Climate and Energy Action Plan and any other connections to city activities. So help me put that in the context of like sort of the performance measures here.
Yeah, I didn't actually outline the specifics of the CRO when I spoke to that topic. The goals and the targets and the deadlines for the CRO are pretty well outlined in the ordinance itself, and I'll let Ethan speak to the more immediate timeline that we have for some plans to update the CAP and those kinds of things.
Yeah, so Ethan Nelson, I'm the Intergovernmental Affairs Manager and also Sustainability for the City of Eugene. So in regards to comments around the Climate Recovery Ordinance being enacted in 2014, and then there was a series of, I think we held 9 meetings with council over the course of 2 years around the Climate Recovery Ordinance. So I think that statement that that nothing's happening, well, there was 9 different engagements with council, work sessions that required a lot of staff time to pull together information, and including that was a number of those meetings were based upon implementing the specific items within the ordinance itself. And so those were things such as identifying goals and metrics and timelines, and so that was a council engagement. Additionally, there was work that was fairly groundbreaking with city manager's office, CMO staff, working with researchers from PSU, Portland State University, to put together a science-based greenhouse gas goal, which really hadn't been done in the U.S. at all by a municipality. And so that's no small undertaking, and so that was a lot of staff work to be able to do that. There was a lot of analysis and collaboration, and as you can imagine, there's a lot of sensitive information in the way that you engage an elected body, and also kind of manage and coordinate community support and input, because there was a lot of community support and input at the same time. And so those different 9 meetings culminated in council taking action to codify the work that staff had been doing and engaging the community. So, I mean, I take a look at that. That's a pretty hefty body of work around climate recovery ordinance and moving that forward with the community and in partnership with the community and understanding how best to land something that's going to be successful for the broad community and the organization. In regards to your question about climate recovery, or the update to the community-wide climate and energy action plan, currently there is, the mayor had put together the initiative for an ad hoc committee in regards to, as had been mentioned in previous comments here at the table, around community engagement and learning lessons and not trying to repeat mistakes of past and or pitfalls of the past, and proactively engaging a larger swath of the community around how best to do a community-wide update that will have fairly large impacts. So how do you construct the engagement process so that it is inclusive, it is addressing the issues that have been brought to the city council and to staff over the course of time. And so that initiative has been identified as a lead for Councilor Alan Zelenka, who is on the Sustainability Commission and also the lead counselor around a lot of climate efforts. And so that's his initiative. Staff is we're adequately staffed to support that effort. We just need direction in that sense. In regards to the actions around prepping for that work, we've engaged committee members, Scove's previous partners at Good Company, to complete a 2013, 2014, 2015 internal and community-wide greenhouse gas inventories. So we're cleaning the data and having consistent methodology so that we can report on that and be as transparent as we can be, and provide good quality data for the community and for the organization and those interested. And so that information, we're finalizing that now. They're also engaged on developing a methodology for that is part of the Climate Recovery Ordinance to enact and administrative rules which had been identified. So we're looking at standardizing the methodology for how we report on an ongoing basis, so we'll have that. And then lastly, we've recently engaged them to help with developing a scope of work for what we presented to council as far as next steps for our internal climate and energy action plan on developing departmental greenhouse gas reduction plans. And so we are engaging a good company to help us scope that on out, and we've got preliminary support and engagement by the fire service and from Chief Zaludik, and also for facilities. And so those are the next two that are on our plate to get wrapped up, and our timeline is hopefully within 6 months, depending upon when I can bring on this new sustainability analyst, which Mia had mentioned, and be able to get that person up to speed. But we're moving forward, and we're making progress, and we're achieving a lot with and being down a couple people. I feel that we've organized in a very efficient manner, and we've targeted where our resources are going to organizational priorities.
That's super helpful. Yeah, and no need to explain those 9 meetings. You may not recall I was a peer reviewer of the scientific work, so actually I know it well. That's very helpful. I guess it doesn't tie it back to performance measures, which is really, sorry, I should have maybe emphasized that. I certainly didn't suggest there was nothing going on, but I guess what I hear from a lot of people, and what council I know heard over and over again in public comment, was that lots of great goal setting and targets and so on, and obviously some is a precondition for implementation. But I'm wondering if there was any discussion about performance measures related to implementation of the CRO, but not implementation of goal setting, actual outcomes is really what I'm asking about.
So,
as something that would reside in the performance measures for the CMO.
Yep, so I can identify that. I apologize for overlooking that part of your question. Specifically, I would say at the meta level, we do have performance measures, and we've had those through our inventories to showcase fuel usage, which is what the Climate Recovery Ordinance identifies in terms of fossil fuel reductions, and also our greenhouse gas inventories. So in regards to metrics, we have those in terms of where we're meeting, and those are the goals and outcomes that have been identified within the Climate Recovery Ordinance, which that's council's directions, right? So outside of that, then we need to look at best practices, and one of the parts of the ad hoc committee has been to identify what measurements we should be doing and metrics that we should have and what makes sense. And so one of the things that we've learned over the years is that there's you can build the perfect machine, but you can't operate it. So one of the things the budget committee probably hears about a lot is parks maintenance, and maintenance of streets, and maintenance on a lot of things. What we have a tendency to do as organizations and communities is to develop the perfect machine, and then you can't maintain it. And so what we really want to do with the ad hoc committee is identify what can we do efficiently that makes sense, that is sustainable in regards to staffing and resources that we can report on, that informs the community in a meaningful way, and informs council, and we can do that on an ongoing basis without having to then come back and say, oh, we need more resources for reporting metrics that we've found that we actually don't really matter to moving us forward. And so that's actually part of the ad hoc committee, and that we'll be incorporating on into the update to the CAP, which we've kind of got a 12 to 18 month kind of timeline that we're hoping to be able to implement, update, engage, and wrap up.
Looking at the time, I think we need to move on unless anyone has a burning question left. We good? So
I would just say, as final comment, I feel like there's no other place that it would reside with the city to have a citywide climate-related performance measure. I know there are in some of them, and we talked to, in some of the service profiles last year, you know, greenhouse gas emissions intensity was one of the metrics, but I would just say, for the record, I think that the CMO is the place to have that reside. Can revisit it later.
So Josh, would you like to make a motion with some recommended amendments?
I don't know, is there a what would be a productive level of specificity? I mean, look, what we talked about just a moment ago with engagement, we're sort of giving a suggestion, but we don't have a motion.
We just make a motion to accept the service profile with a recommendation to adopt some performance measures around engagement, and if you have a suggestion around, it could be that vague.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
So can you?
I move that we adopt the service profile, but with amendments on additional performance measure strategizing by the CMO. That's sufficiently vague and giving you sufficient freedom on both engagement and related to overall climate performance, you know, pursuant to the CRO.
Is there a second?
A second.
All right, all in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Great, it passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
All right, next up is urban forestry.
Sorry, I forgot, I brought some materials from a campaign we're doing just to share
Great.
with you all.
Thank you.
Pass them around.
You do.
Eugene Urban Forestry Manager, and this is,
Good evening, I'm Scott Altenhoff, Urban Forestry Management Analyst.
to present our profile. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Everybody good? Okay. So this is a great fall photo of Eugene. That's one of my favorites. It's from a couple of years ago, and we're looking at about 26% canopy coverage in our urban forest as you look out, and that's on public land and private land and parks. So here's our system overview. So urban forestry currently manages approximately 100,000 street trees located adjacent to 543 miles of streets, 750 miles of sidewalks, and infrastructure such as curb and gutter and stormwater facilities. And we also enforce urban forestry and vegetation codes. So this slide is an example of what the eco-services value of the urban forestry is per year, and this is from Earth Economics in 2014. These numbers are a little bit low because we've done significant inventory updates since this time. But if you take a look through this slide, we total about a little over $1.5 million annual benefits from the urban forest through stormwater regulation, air quality, climate stability, energy savings, and aesthetic information, which relates to property values and things of that nature. And if we were to be forced to replace our urban forest as a whole in 1 year, it's worth roughly about $124.5 million as a total replacement. So urban forestry guiding principles. In 2014, we went through an urban forestry review and decided to do things quite a bit differently. And these are the guiding principles that we came up with to guide our work. And that's to work smarter, continuous improvement, be proactive, which is a theme that you'll hear throughout this presentation, teamwork, leverage, and probably one of the most important things is grit and resilience to actually attack these things and get it done. So here's our urban forestry programs as they are now. We have 4 main program areas that are interdependent and mutually supporting. As you'll find out in a short amount of time, we're a small work group, and it takes all of us to get all of these items done. So we have a proactive maintenance pruning program, which we call our MPZ program, and we want our operations staff to spend 80% of our crew time in those activities. Then we have our responsive risk management program, which deals with the citizens' request for service, which is RFS, and we want our operational staff to spend about 20% responding to those issues. Then we have our developer street tree program, which deals with tree preservation, consultations, establishment, construction, and planting. And then we have our planning, policy, and code group that deals with developing planning specs, inventory, coming up with our street tree list, and doing a lot of plan review and also code enforcement. So here are our resources as of FY16. We have a little bit over $1.624 million, and it's evenly split between the road and storm fund. Not quite, but just about evenly. So we have 10 FTEs. We have one manager, which is myself, a management analyst, which is Scott beside me. We have 4 technical staff members that typically run those programs that you saw. And then we have 4 operations staff members that actually perform the pruning and removal work and mitigation work. And then when our budgets allow, we have 1 to 2 seasonal employees for watering establishment and helping us out. We also have various contractors that we use for hazard response, planting, and things of that nature. So this slide is from Arborist News, and it depicts the value of actually maintaining an urban forest without maintaining an urban forest. So if you look at the solid black line on the top and the solid gray line at the bottom, it clearly shows that the benefits of maintaining your urban forest and the cost are certainly well worth your while. And this relates directly back to that economic value slide that I showed you earlier. So our equipment resources for maintaining the urban forest. We have one 75-foot boom truck with a chipper, and we've got one climbing ground truck with a chipper as well. And we do have a water truck on the way, but I can't quite count it yet because it's not with us. So technology, asset management, and I have these together because since about 2014, we've embarked on a holistic management approach, and we've really relied on an Esri app called Collector for doing our work, and that's on the left. And you can see the green dots, the yellow dots, and maybe some red that shows up. Every tree that our staff and contractors touch is now inventoried and has tasks put on it what's done. And what's really nice about this is you don't have to be in the office to do that. So it's really increased our efficiency. And I can see live data of when our contractors and staff have inventoried a tree or pruned it. And it's been really efficient. And then on the right side is our work order system, which we call the maintenance management system. And this is how we farm out jobs that need to be done that relate to that inventory to our contractors or staff. So it also tracks cost and things of that nature. So our services provided. Emergency response is one of our most important services. Recently we had a windstorm with lots of rain, and we were busy all weekend. So the staff is, responds to snow and ice storms, wind and rain storms, and we also coordinate with our partners in Public Works Maintenance on response. As you look back at our equipment that we have available, it's really important that we develop good, strong partnerships with our allied work groups to get these things done. And the slide on the right shows you one of those efforts with urban forestry staff working on the tree and Public Works Maintenance staff actually removing it from the roadway. Risk management. In about 2014, we decided that we really had to do a better job on managing our risk in the urban forest. And so our RFS inspections, which are public request, are now inspected 100%. And then we also have a group of qualified ISA certified arborists and also board certified master arborists that perform hazard tree inspections. So they're qualified tree risk assessors. And so if you look at the bottom of the slide, this is how we currently rate when we go out and do an inspection. With 100,000 street trees and a significant public request for service, we had to have some way to actually prioritize what we do, and this is the method that we use. And if something winds up in a category 1 or at 2, then that usually winds up in the maintenance pruning zone, which is our proactive maintenance zones, which are basically broken into our 23 neighborhood associations. Urban forestry operation consists of 4 individuals, and they're primarily responsible for pruning and removals. And they're highly skilled and very good at what they do. And they also do a lot of inventory work after they're done. When I showed you the mobile app, when they get done touching a tree, they spend literally about 30 to 40 seconds to a minute and update that inventory. And that allows us to be quite a bit more effective in the management. And it's also involved the line level staff in managing urban forests as well. Tree planting, we have 2 primary areas that we actually plant trees in the city. Our Developer Street Tree Program, which is focused on mainly development and newly dedicated right-of-way. And we usually enter into a contract with developers, a city plan option or a development plan option to get that done. And then we have our infill planning program, which currently we contract with the Friends of Trees. And some of that is also taken care of through staff and our volunteer programs. And this is from last year's National Arbor Day celebration in the Riverfront Park system. Consulting services are really important for our work group for tree protection during new construction and redevelopment. If you take a look at the photograph on the left, the majority of street trees are located in a very tough environment with utilities and infrastructure. And in order to preserve our tree canopy of mature trees during construction activities, it's highly important that we're involved to make sure that that happens. And the photograph on the right is something that hasn't quite started yet, but is about to. Tree preservation, we work hand in hand with our partners in Public Works, the sidewalk program, and other public works partners to try and preserve our large canopy trees, because there's a significant value to having those trees in our community as far as the eco services that they provide, stormwater interception and carbon sequestration, as long as wildlife. And you know, it's really nice when you walk down a hot street on a summer day to have good tree canopy coverage. So this is a project at 12th and Almeida, and these trees were posted for potential removal due to the sidewalk not being ADA compliant. And many of the neighbors came out. They were concerned about the potential tree removal, and we engaged them and worked with our partners, and you can see that the trees are still there, and we did a wonderful job of that. Now, this isn't always the case. We can't always do this, but this is what we strive for. I mean, we really strive to maintain our magnificence of our large trees in town, but it doesn't always happen. So, you know, just remember that. And then development plan review. So this is Scott beside me. He does the primarily plan review for our group for PEPs, PUDs, building permits. And the reason that we're engaged in this is for some of the reasons I've already talked about, tree preservation, and also to ensure in new areas or redevelopment that we actually have soil volume that's appropriate to grow trees. Soil volume is probably one of the most important things that we can do as far as growing trees. So we've kind of had a switch in that XY coordinates are really important for us. You know, so if a tree doesn't go back, you know, initially, that if we're able to protect the soil volume, that we'll be able to try to plant a tree there later. So that's a little bit of a shift in focus for us, is that XY coordinates are super important. Even if they're covered up with concrete, you can always go back and cut some concrete later and plant a tree. And then tree appraisals. It's important that we do tree appraisals for building permits, so if they remove a tree, that we're able to gain some funding and reestablish trees. And unfortunately, the majority of our tree appraisals are done due to vehicular accidents, about 3 a month, and where we have a complete loss, and we're able to use our landscape and tree appraisal guidelines to make sure that we have the funding to replace those when they're
Complete
gone.
loss of the tree.
Pardon me?
Complete loss of the tree.
Yeah, the vehicles take the trees
I
out.
presume also complete loss of the vehicle at that point.
You'd be surprised what we see, and you know, sometimes it's like, wow, people actually walked away from that. So yeah, complete loss of the tree. And it's unfortunate, but you know, there's a lot of cars on the roadway, and we have, as I said, roughly 100,000 trees. So lots of targets for distracted drivers. Partnerships are probably one of the most important things for urban forestry. We have a robust partnership with the Friends of Trees, and they help us tremendously planting trees in the right-of-way and organizing volunteers. And the neighborhood associations, when we have a pruning project or potential removals, we'll actually go out and try and engage the neighborhood associations so they know what's going on. There's nothing worse than have somebody show up on an afternoon and it's like, oh my gosh, these trees are gone. So we try really hard to engage our customer base. And then homeowners association, which is basically a subset of a neighborhood association. We've had some large projects where we've involved homeowners associations on some major replants and sidewalk repairs. And we typically try and go to their board meetings and engage them and come up with a plan that's acceptable for their homeowners association and also meets our goals. And then we strive for win-win situations in that. It's not always easy, but that's what we strive for. And then we have a budding relationship with the Home Builders Association of Blaine County. We've worked on some tree planting specifications with them, and we feel that we're actually have a pretty solid partnership with them. And we recently met with them about some potential changes, how we could plant trees more efficiently. And they're primarily the individuals who are involved in new right-of-way establishment through development. And then we've also done a lot of outreach with the local landscape architect community as part of our 2014 program review. We met with several landscape architectural firms who do the majority of the streetscape design, about how we can be better partners to achieve quality tree planting spots and canopy coverage for future generations. And a lot of work we do, believe it or not, we're not going to reap the value of it. It's about the future. So when we plant trees, it's all about the future generations. Hopefully we're around long enough to see the benefits of it, but as we know, it takes a long time to establish 80 to 100-year-old trees. So our work is very much looking towards the future in many ways, and that's why I talked about those XY coordinates of soil volume, because trees come and go like people, but the soil volume is what's really important to make sure in the city that we have room to grow big trees in the future. And then other city departments, we work with PDD and engineering very closely on projects such as the LTD expansions in West Eugene. We're very creative with the project managers to come up with expanded planting zones in very tight spots, silva cells, and it's really important to have soil volume to grow trees. If you don't have soil volume, you're really not going to have any tree canopy coverage. So when it comes down to it, it's really all about having good soil volume to grow successful trees. And there's a simple formula. It's kind of like it's like a plant in a pot. Once the plant outgrows its pot, either you transplant it or you pretty much have the same size plant. Well, it's our goal that 50% of the trees that we plant will be large canopy trees that will help shade the streets and things like that. And to accomplish that, we need soil volume. And ongoing emerging issues for us. We've got a pruning cycle backlog. Best management practices say that we want to be between 7 and 10 years, and we're well beyond that. And then sustainable maintenance revenue. As I mentioned, we've got roughly 4 people for 100,000. We have for 100,000 street trees. You can do the math on that. It's it's a lot of trees to maintain. And then tree infrastructure conflicts. We have a lot of conflicts with sidewalks and ADA and trees, especially our larger trees. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we've worked really hard with our partners in public work maintenance to preserve our large trees when we can. And at times, we'll go to significant effort to do that. And then climate change is an ongoing emerging issue for us. Recently, we updated our adopted street tree list, and we included over 200 new species. Many of those are climate adaptive trees to ensure that our urban forest has plasticity moving forward to deal with whatever's next. I mean, we think we know what's happening, but we really don't. And it looks like we're headed towards a drier climate, but that could change. So plasticity in our urban forest has been addressed to the best of our ability by adding trees that can survive a wide range of temperatures and drought tolerant and things of that nature. And then program recognition. I'm proud to say that last spring that we accepted our 37th consecutive Tree City USA Award, and we also accepted a growth award for our innovative programs that we've embarked on, our proactive pruning program and responsive pruning program. And you get these awards by having a city that's committed budgetarily and and has programs that support tree management. And we've proven that for 37 consecutive years, and we're headed towards our 38th. And so that's a really good thing. And most recently, we were awarded the 2016 Oregon Community Trees Organization Award for our work on our climate adaptive street tree list, and also our progressive proactive program and inspection program that we have. And that's chosen through a statewide organization that works on education around urban forestry, community and urban forestry issues. So we were very proud to accept that with the mayor last month. So at this point in time, here's a beautiful photo of the top of the butte looking down Willamette Street on a nice cold winter day, and we'll open it up for questions.
Jill?
First of all, fascinating. I mean, I had no idea. So anyway, just very interesting. Thank you for your presentation. So how do you maintain soil volume? Like you said, if there's a space and then you maybe cement it over, like how do you maintain volume? If, like you said, you could always cut it open and put a tree in there. Like, how does that work?
Well, it's interesting you ask that. First off, a lot of times we're stuck with past practices. I mean, the size tree that was there before, there's infrastructure built around it, and that's what we have. But if we have a large tree there that's removed, we want to protect that, and we work with engineering quite a bit on the bulb outs. I don't know if you've been down 8th Street, but on our larger trees, they just did a street reconstruction on 8th Street in the downtown core, and if you drive, you'll see bulb outs. Yes. And those bulb outs actually ensure that we probably won't lose soil volume when the tree actually dies. It will be able to replant there and grow larger trees. Now granted, if you look outside here next to the library, you'll see some planting spots that actually have some shared rooting volume and things, and we've tried to do the best that we can to ensure that under the paved surface that we have enough soil volume to grow a certain size tree. On the LTD project that's going out West 11th and on 6th and 7th Street, we worked hand in hand with the project managers to develop silvacells, which are basically a bridge sidewalk, which allows uncompacted soil to be located underneath that, because soil that is compacted beyond 80% really is detrimental to tree growth. But 80% soil compaction is really bad for putting sidewalks on. So we have about 18 feet of sidewalk that has been spec'd that spans this area, so we can get away with having soil compaction that is at 80% so we can grow healthy trees. So that's, in essence, that's how we try to do it. We try and maintain what we have, and in new areas where we can, and it's not cheap to do that, we try and use those techniques to gain soil volume.
Yeah, thank you.
Garrett?
Firstly, love what you guys are doing. Very concise, kind of touched on all the points that I would have ever had considerations on. I think the department and the presentation was great, so that's number one. So I have a 3-step question to follow that. One, that app that you brought up, are there other places in your department that you also had some sort of digital interface or upgrade that you added?
I know that other work groups are using the Collector app. For instance, the Stormwater team uses it, and who else does it? Am I answering your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Several Parks Department that have to manage assets, whether it be park benches or signs within our park system. They found that we've worked with them to show how simple and what a powerful tool it is, so they've adopted it as well.
For instance, emerald ash borer may show up at some time in the future. I don't know if you've heard about emerald ash borer on the East Coast and the Midwest. And so we were very quickly able to take this app and map our ash trees in Eugene. So in case something happens, that we'll be ready to, with the response. And we can tell you what the value of that is and things like that. And it's basically work that would have taken us You know, possibly a couple of days in the past, it can be done like in 20 or 30 minutes now, you know, based on that, so.
Okay, thank you. The second part, this app that we're referring to, how long did it take to approve that to be part of the process of your department to select and identify what trees are coming up next, that sort of thing?
As far as from a management standpoint,
From a
of
management
saying,
standpoint, yeah.
this is the technology that we'd like to use, I would say that,
I mean specifically for like the year that you didn't have it to the year that you did have it. What was that process? And did it just take a year, or was it longer, or was it shorter?
it was about a 1.5 year process that one of our technicians was helping us try and come up with a solution to our inventory issues that would reduce our time and allow us to track things. And so he pretty much started just laying some things out for us, and we just adopted it, and it was very grassroots in many ways.
So it was an individual tech that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And so then my third question is, so on the management side, what was it that permitted a tech, for example, who may not have so much knowledge in innovation or, you know, cutting costs, or, you know, what the true benefits could be of an app like that? What was the level of management that decided, okay, we're going to go forward with this? Was it a individual or a series of individuals or a process of managers that decided, or was it a mission statement that you reflected back onto in order to say, yes, this is something that we're going to incorporate now as a new feature of the department?
I think it goes back to our guiding principles of working smarter, you know, and trying to be more efficient with what we do. And we were definitely the beta test group for this, to push this envelope out and try it out. And I'll have to say that it's been more than effective for us, and people have seen what we've done and started to use it as well. So I mentioned the maintenance management system as well, which was on the right side of that slide. And now the two are actually able to interface. So if we have a work order, people are able to see it on the app, you know, that something's going on there. But in many ways, it started with just trying to be more efficient and looking at a variety of tools and exploring that. And this certainly, we went through, we used Esri Avenza Maps for some time, and, you know, we were just looking for something that we could use that would make us more efficient and mobile for the most part, because it takes, you saw our size, I mean, there's 10 of us, and if you have to drive back into the office and use a desktop application, it's not efficient. I mean, you burn a lot of carbon, you know, and if you can do it right there in the field and then go on with your task and not taking a lot of notes. So the way that I believe it happened is that we were just trying to work smarter, and we had the support of some section managers and things of that to look at that. And it's certainly growing.
Great, thank you.
Just to confirm, it was a ground level
Yeah, it
initiative
was a
that
ground
was
level initiative.
supported by management. So we were on the vanguard and really appreciated that support for innovation, and feel that that's going to be a recipe to follow for success throughout the city.
And when you say we, how many managers would you say were on board with the initiative of the total?
Everyone in our chain of command and allied work groups too.
It certainly didn't take long for me to get on board. It's like we don't have to have somebody drive back into the office, and we have real-time information, and we're able to put tasks on it. Like, we can look at the trees that were pruned today, you know, and it's just, so I appreciate the drive for innovation on, you know, staff members that may not have managerial authority, and they go out and they look for those things. And, you know, we have some very, very good creative staff. And it certainly, you know, those people deserve a lot of the credit.
Josh?
Oh, yeah, a quick one. I'd love to talk about trees all night. I'm so grateful for the work you guys are doing. It's amazing, and I know the community loves it. I've heard it from a ton of people. I just have two quick questions. I think they're quick, about performance measures, of course. Surprise, surprise. I'm wondering, to what extent would it be possible to have some sort of joint performance measure from an asset management perspective involving trees and sidewalks? Because it seems to me that they're sort of necessarily intertwined. And I'm curious to hear you comment on that. And then I'm also curious, kind of in the spirit, I mean, for folks who have the transportation profile in front of them, you look at the first performance measure there, it's percent of improved asphalt roadways in these different categories. To what extent is there something like that, maybe related to the pruning cycle backlog? I mean, I guess I was surprised to see, just because you mentioned with, some specificity what the pruning cycle backlog is. It seems like chipping away at that is kind of like what we've been doing with our road bond measures in terms of dealing with deferred maintenance. So I'll leave those two.
Right. Well, we probably have a backlog of deferred maintenance of about 20 to 30 years. We used to spend the majority of our time in a very reactive mode, and for clearance codes, they require 15 feet over the street and 9 feet over the sidewalk, and then stop sign clearance and things like that. So that was the majority of the work that we focused on. And in the last 2 years, we've decided, in order to maintain the magnificence that we talked about of our big trees, we really needed a holistic approach. So we went through an exercise that Scott led, where we looked about how we can develop a pruning cycle program and look at where to spend our time for value. So we've been spending a lot of time recently in the downtown core, which we have some of our biggest trees. And when you prune small trees, you get a lot of bang for your value because it goes quick, and you may not have to be back there for a significant amount of time. Well, a lot of our older trees haven't had holistic tree care in quite some time due to budget reductions and things like that. So we're spending a lot of time in the downtown core pruning large big leaf maples and other trees, which, as you can imagine, they take a lot more time. And many of these you have to, climb and to access the full canopy. So to your question about sidewalks and tree conflicts on a performance measure, that'd be interesting. We've done a lot of work with the Public Works Maintenance on a tree sidewalk infrastructure policy document recently. And the division managers for Public Works Maintenance in the Park and Open Space currently have that under review. It's not a performance measure, but I can definitely see something about how many miles of walkable sidewalk you have with, large canopy trees or something like that. But at this point in time, we haven't crossed that bridge. But what we have crossed is we've jointly developed this document that will allow us to be on the same page about how we deal with those conflicts. And so we can explain to the community, whether it's myself, Scott, or a Public Works manager or someone in the sidewalk program, exactly the steps that we're going to take to do it. And so
then maybe you don't need the performance measure.
Yeah,
I guess if you have the policies in place to do that, that's really what I was getting at.
Yeah, and we have done quite a bit of work on developing it, and I said currently it's under review by the Parks and Open Space manager and director and the Public Works division manager as well. So. And it's nice to work with your partners for common goals to achieve those things.
Thank you.
Scott and then John.
I was looking at some of the historical data here, and the cost of maintenance per tree and then the service per tree has gone down significantly, it looks like. But the number of trees have increased, and I was wondering if you could address that, why the costs are going down and with the backlog, and then also you see this having an upturn.
I'm sorry, my hearing's not great from standing next to chippers, believe it or not. So if you could repeat your question.
Yeah, it looks like the cost of service and maintenance per tree has gone down in recent years.
Right.
The backlog for pruning is up. The number of trees have grown, it seems like, looking at these graphs. So if the number of trees have increased and the cost has come down, my question was, how is that? What's driving that downward? And then second, will you see these, I'm assuming that most of these new trees were in the last couple of years, according to the graph here. When do you see that uptick in maintenance?
Well, as I mentioned, if we can get to the young trees within the first couple of years of being planted, typically that will take care of the majority of the issues for a significant amount of time. I mean, it's similar to dealing with issues in youth. If you set people off on a good track, you get years of life out of that. So if I can address the pruning cycle again, I mentioned that we had a switch in 2014 and we spent a lot of time on our big trees. That's actually slowed us down because we're pruning less trees because we're focused on some of our bigger trees. It doesn't mean that we're not pruning small trees, but when you have 4 people and, you know, a limited amount of contract dollars, it just takes a lot longer to get through those trees. So as soon as we're able to get through our pruning cycle one time, you'll see this drop tremendously because we've done a lot of work, and especially, you know, if we get the young trees. Now, as far as the cost goes, who remembers 2014? I mean, you can see the spike in 2014 across all those. That was our snowstorm. And so we had a significant amount of resources that went out to tree removal and tree pruning, and quite frankly, we're still dealing with some of the effects of that. You'd be amazed that when they show up to deal with a tree, it's like, oh my gosh, you know, this happened during the snowstorm. But what I can say is what we found out is the trees that we had worked on from a holistic standpoint survived those conditions far better than trees that had no maintenance before. And so where we were able to take care of weak attachments and, you know, take care of some dead wood and potentially mature trees, a lot of times self-retrench. You know, you'll see trees that are coming down. And so we can take some pruning actions to retrench the tree, you know, to make sure that it's not overgrowing itself through, you know, bud reduction and things of that nature. And the City Hall tree that's on 6th Street that's kind of by itself is a prime example of that. And you want to talk about how we do that a little bit?
Sure. So in recent years, we've recognized, as Chris mentioned, that trees that have received a little proactive maintenance fared so much better under stress, whether it be high winds or frozen precipitation. And within the last decade or so, various researchers and practitioners have shown that, as Chris alluded to, the trees that persist over time are ones that reinforce themselves and retrench. They draw on their resources and they maximize their solar exposure but minimize their exposure to wind forces and such. So we've embarked over the last 5 or so years on a program to identify and work upon our heritage trees, or, you know, our big, majestic big leaf maples. The one at the City Hall site is a prime example. There were no problems, but we recognized if we want that to persist over time, we need to get to it in advance. And not to get too involved, but you just do minor growth, much as you would a garden plant. By pinching the terminal bud, you can induce growth down low, and it just fills out. But it takes proactive efforts to do so, and most municipalities don't have the resources. And we were in that boat many years ago, or a decade ago, working to put out spot fires. So really proud, and we're seeing great payoffs with that approach.
Yeah, so it's a different approach. So to answer your questions, you know, like total service cost per tree, we do have inflation. You know, staff contracts, equipment costs go up, fuel rates change, and things like that. And the difference between the total maintenance cost per tree and the total service cost per tree is the total service cost per tree is when we send our inspector out, and, you know, they inspect the site and then determine what work has to be done with that. And sometimes that there's no work to be done, you know, so it saves us a tremendous amount of resources to have someone show up in a small truck versus one of our large pieces of equipment, you know, going site to site and figuring out, you know, we really don't have much work to do here, you know, so, but those all have to be included in the total service cost per tree. So our goal is to, you know, provide public safety as much as possible. And I believe that through our risk management program and RFS inspection program, we're actually to identify those issues far sooner than we did in the past. Because every request that we get from the public, as I mentioned, now is rated for what type of response we'll have. And I'll have to be honest, you know, we thought that we were going to get a lot of pushback from the community when we made that switch, because every one we used to send the crew out to, and now we send an inspector out to. And you know, we have people who were used to frequent service from us, and when you show up and say, you know, we've had a change of approach, you know, this doesn't rate this year. If something changes, call us back and we'll come out for, you know, an additional inspection. I really thought that we would have some pushback from the community, but surprisingly, most people said, yeah, we completely understand that you've got this large asset and limited resource to deal with it. In many ways, thanks for your efforts of explaining that to us. And that goes to good customer relations. And we have a lot of staff buy-in. I mean, our staff is fantastic and able to communicate with the customers, to the point that I get very few phone calls, to my desk about what's going on, because they're very professional and very efficient. And everybody understands what we're trying to do, and that's really important.
Sean?
You mentioned the use of contractors, especially for emergencies. What's the typical annual cost for that use of contractors?
Well, it just depends on what type of year it is. For instance, our hazard tree removal contract is worth about $130,000 a year, and we use that for assisting our staff to remove trees and grind stumps and things like that. We grind very few stumps. It's it's work that, in many ways, I mean, it's important from a safety standpoint that it's done right, but with the size staff we have, I'd rather use our technical expertise pruning trees and things like that versus grinding stumps. So, but we do use them, and 2014 was a prime example that with the amount of staff that we have, when we have a tree or an asset that fails, usually in the right of way, it's impacting some type of transportation route. And we can only get to so many of those, so we engage our contractors to help us out and do that. A recent windstorm that we had the last couple of weeks, we're actually able to handle everything in-house. But if that would have grown to what they thought it would be, we have 2 local contractors that we use to assist us with that. And if we have a really big storm like 2014, we realized that wasn't enough, so we actually engaged in an innovative storm response contract with Wright's Tree Service. And I believe we're one of the few communities who actually has a storm response contract with a large contractor that primarily works on line clearance. And it doesn't cost us anything a year, but we meet with them once a year and go over details and things. And if we need them, we can have up to 10 crews dispatched to us, and it can come in waves. So we can ask for like we need 3 crews or we need 5 crews, and they'll come from out of the area, because typically the crews that are here in the area, Wright is currently contracted with eWeb. They're really busy at eWeb, so they'd pull these crews out of Seattle or Northern or Southern California, and that would help us tremendously. So that's been really cutting edge. After 2014, we knew that we had to have something in our back pocket for insurance to be able to clear our arterial routes and neighborhoods and things like that. We had some streets closed for days and days in 2014 because we had wires down and trees blocking roadways, and we just couldn't get to it. And we prioritized our emergency response by our major arterials, neighborhood collectors, and things like that for EMS services. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the service profile.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick 5-minute break. We're running a little bit behind, so we'll start again at 7:15. Call the meeting back to order. Next up, we have the infrastructure and project management service profile. You can start whenever you like.
All right, thank you. So my name is Jennifer Willer. I'm a principal civil engineer in our Public Works Engineering Division. And as was said, I'm here to talk about our infrastructure project management services. And most of these services are provided by Public Works Engineering, and we're talking about infrastructure that's in the public rights-of-way and on publicly owned lands, and it's really as opposed to buildings. So buildings are a different kind of infrastructure or structure that we might be talking about. But for here, and I'll get into some examples that kind of is the full spectrum of types of projects that we manage here. The infrastructure project management service or services are made up of just over 42 FTE providing those services. And in FY17, we had an adopted budget of $6.3 million in expenditures. And there are no general fund monies used for this service. Predominantly, this service is made up of planning, designing, and managing of construction projects. And it's really, I kind of divided this into two major processes, but this is primarily the major piece of this program or this service. And capital infrastructure projects include the preservation, maintenance, and expansion of the city's infrastructure projects. These projects are either built publicly using city resources for planning, design, and construction management, or privately as part of privately constructed public improvements for new development. Support for the services also include real estate appraisal and acquisition, land use reviews, rate setting, environmental evaluations, and long-term planning for our capital improvement program. And one of the benefits of going third here tonight is that hopefully I can weave in some information from some of the questions that you've asked earlier tonight. So we do have some performance measures that talk about our design and construction of projects, and the cost to design compared to the contract cost for construction was about 4% in FY16. And the cost for construction management compared to the contract cost was about 10%. And if you kind of look across the industry, those are probably pretty much on the lower side of what we would see across all industry. And just as far as pictures that, I might as well explain some of the pictures that you're seeing here as we go along. The picture on the right side is showing kind of a real typical pavement preservation project where we went in and removed the top layers of pavement and then repaved the street. We've got some pipe, which was some storm sewer pipe work there in the middle, constructing a median island for a pedestrian crossing, installing some pavement markings for shared use bike lanes, and then the top left picture is a permeable pavement on a residential street. So the other piece of our infrastructure project management process is the creating, recording, and managing the infrastructure information. So the bottom two graphics there kind of showing where we collect the information from our construction projects in what we call an as-construct drawing. And then the other graphic there at the bottom of the screen is just showing the connection to our existing service. So tracking how we've connected to an existing system. All of that information gets put into our graphic information system, and that is what's depicted in the big picture in the upper right corner there, so that anybody in the city can then go look up that data and see information about the systems that were constructed, where they are, how old they are, and just a bunch of different characteristics of that system. I also want to mention here that kind of tying with the tree, we have a version of the app that we've used in our infrastructure project management, similar to the trees, where we collected all the data for the sidewalk ramps all throughout the city. And so that information now is available in our GIS system that anyone in the city can then go and look up information on the ramps, what are the slopes, what are the widths, and trying to evaluate them on how they comply with the ADA rules. And also, again, just kind of mentioning some performance measure. We did do some surveys with our internal customers, so primarily city staff, and to make sure that these systems are meeting their needs for information. And we found that the satisfaction rates are very high. I mean, like in the 90s to 100% year after year. So, and I think that that comes from that every year we're adding to it. We're building this system. As more information needs come up, we add more layers to the system so there's more information available. So now I just have a series of slides that kind of illustrate the different major work areas that fall within our capital infrastructure system here. And so this first one is our transportation systems, and you'll be hearing about more of that in the next presentation. But so this is just a really quick snapshot. Transportation projects include construction and preservation of streets, paths, bridges, sidewalks, and alleys. They provide for active transportation facilities as well as retrofitting them onto existing streets. And then also installing or upgrading signals, including pedestrian signals. So some of the pictures we have here, I mean, the one on the upper left is pretty fresh. That's the South Bank path reconstruction that's happening almost right as we speak. Well, maybe not at this time of night, but but I think the concrete is all poured out there, so it's pretty new. We've installed some two-way protected bike lanes on streets. I think that that's Alder Street on the bottom left there. Again, the upper right corner is just another pavement preservation program, street repaving, and then installing a hybrid beacon crossing on 30th Avenue. So we also manage the wastewater system, and that includes updating and managing the wastewater model. So that's kind of the upper right-hand corner is a model that we use to plan rehabilitation needs and the capacity of the system. We design and administer construction of or rehabilitation of pipelines. And the picture on the upper left that I included is just kind of an interesting view that most people don't get to see, the inside of a pipe. So one of the things that we do both in trying to evaluate the condition of the pipe as well as after pipe has been installed, we run a TV camera through that pipe so that we can investigate what the condition of it is. And this one is nice and bright and clean because it's a brand new pipe, so it doesn't have all the cracks and some of the things that you might see in other pipes. So let's see. Okay. And so the next system would be our stormwater systems, and this covers a pretty wide gambit of types of projects. It includes the construction and rehabilitation of pipe systems, which is very similar to the wastewater system. We do a lot of the same, we don't have quite the modeling system that we do for the wastewater yet. That's something that we'll be probably covering in the future. But a lot of the inspection of the condition of the pipes and also the inspection during construction. Improvements to open waterways, such as the Amazon Creek, which is the picture in the bottom center. And then retrofitting in stormwater treatment facilities like the planters that are seen in the upper left-hand corner there. And then the next area would be our airport-related projects. So Public Works Engineering does a number of projects to support our airport facilities, and these are some pictures of some fairly recent projects, such as reconstruction of an airport maintenance access road with the culverts that we're crossing under it. We did a project where we expanded one of the parking lots at the airport, and then also new sidewalk for the terminal. And then the last theme of projects that I have listed here are the ones that we do for our parks and open space facilities. And most of these pictures are showing the construction or rehabilitation of existing parks and playgrounds. But we also do a number of natural resources projects where we're going in, a lot of like the Delta Ponds projects were projects that were designed or managed in combination with our parks and open space staff and engineering staff. So a couple of, and I have kind of as much detail as you want to go into here, but a couple of things that are in our service description were how do we do community involvement and customer input? And I know that this was something that came up in the earlier presentation, so I wanted to, it's very appropriate that we're talking about that here. Community involvement and input are a big part of managing our projects. And citizens expect to be involved and to have a say, and rightly so. And one of the challenges that we have is trying to measure that so that it fits the project, because not every project needs to have a big, huge public meeting for it, but also just sending out a postcard doesn't fit for every project either. So trying to find that right balance of what fits for each project. And a lot of that comes back to what are we hearing from our residents, and if there's a lot of questions or if there's a lot of concern, then we know that we need to do more to support that project and to make sure that we're getting all the input that we need. But I know that in our service description, I think that I mentioned our transportation system has a really good example of that spectrum of input that we involve our residents in. So for a real traditional, straightforward pavement preservation project, we do a series of postcards out to the residents. So about 18 months in advance of a project, we're sending out a postcard to the people that either live or have businesses right there on the project, so that they know far enough in advance that if there's something that they want to either do out in the pavement, so sometimes we have developers say that have a lot right there in front of our project and they want to make a sewer connection before we come in and pave the street. We want to make sure that gets done so that we're not cutting into that new pavement as soon as we get done paving it. And so by doing that 18 months in advance, they have like a summer to schedule that work and get it done before we're there. We follow that up with another postcard. Once we get our plans a little bit more settled and they're closer to being able to go out for bid, to again let the wider neighborhood know about the project that's coming, as well as once we hire a contractor, we send out another set of postcards to the neighborhood to say, this is the contractor we've hired, here's their schedule. So, and often we'll have a website, we're putting information out on Twitter, we're posting construction information, so there's a lot of ways that people can find out about the project, including we also publish a weekly road advisory in the newspaper. So there's a lot of options from the most technical to kind of the lowest technical that people can access information. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have the South Willamette Improvement Project, which if you followed that through the news and everything, we see that that had a very involved public involvement process, including a number of surveys and public meetings and hearings and informational sessions and workshops and more. I mean, it seems like there were years of involvement, and it's really not done yet, because what we see on that project out there, that was a pilot striping to see how it went. even as soon as like a couple of weeks after the construction, or after the striping was done, we were already making adjustments based on feedback that we were hearing from people. And now we're kind of letting that season a little bit before we go and make some more changes and get that feedback of how it's working. So much more involved community involvement project. And I want to make sure. Oh, and then again, any time of direct outreach or mailings that we send out, we also make sure that we're getting those out to the neighborhood associations, because that's another way that people hear about things that are going on in their neighborhood. And then I think that I also had some, I don't know if they were strategies or performance measures in here, but we also, it's not real directly community involvement, but I suppose it's a version of customer input, is that we also involve our local utility companies, both private and public utility companies, throughout our design process so that they are aware of our schedules and our projects that are going on. They are a standard recipient on our plan review distribution lists. And then we also have an annual meeting with our annual contractors where they're invited to come in and give us feedback about how projects are going, as well as follow that up with a meeting that provides them any updates for our construction specifications and what projects are coming out the following year. And then finally, operating environment. So there, as you can see, there's a wide range of projects that are covered that we construct. And so we just pulled out a few major themes as far as the environment that we work in. And we talked about sustainability in the first presentation. And I would say that in this infrastructure project management area is where a lot of work is being done around sustainability. It's kind of funny because I get some feedback from people about they're like, pavements, what's sustainable about pavements? And yet it's such a big piece of what we construct that you can get a lot of bang for your buck on some technologies around pavements. So Eugene has been a leader for years now in using what's called warm mix asphalt, which has a significant impact on greenhouse gas emissions from the manufacture of asphalt pavement. We also do a lot of in-place reclamation, which is the picture on the bottom right-hand corner, where we actually are tilling up the existing materials in place and repaving over those materials after some treatment, and rather than hauling all that off to a landfill someplace. We also do a lot of work around prioritizing our projects so that we're preserving our system before it falls into a more expensive full reconstruct. And so I mentioned the use of alternative construction methods of in-place recycling and warm mix asphalt. We do a lot of pilot projects where we're looking at emerging technologies. So use of recycled shingles in the mix. We've done some projects with that to try and figure out, what kind of specifications, what kind of longevity can we get there? How can we maximize the replacement of those virgin oils in our asphalt mix and reduce our use there. We have done a lot of work around transitioning from traditional high-pressure sodium lights to LED street lights. We do a lot of collecting information on our construction projects around construction waste materials. So we have the contractors report to us on all our construction projects. Where is the waste going? Is it going to a landfill? Is it being recycled and reused somewhere else? Or in the case of asphalt, asphalt is one of those products that has a lot of value in how it can be reused. And pretty much all of the asphalt that's removed from our streets goes back and is stockpiled by contractors to be reused in new streets. And so there's a lot of reuse there. We are doing a lot of work around updating our street design standards to have a more complete streets view for our design standards, as well as pursuing Vision Zero strategies. So this gets back to that triple bottom line of that we're not just talking about constructing projects, but looking at how can we make people's lives better and be economical too. As well as, and I mentioned it a little bit about that inventory that we used, our app for collecting the sidewalk ramp data is that we updated our ADA transition plan for our public rights-of-way, and that data collection was part of that whole process as well. Costs of construction. So after a drop in construction costs during the period of 2009 to 2012, and we really saw that in our pavement bond measure that was being implemented around that time, costs have been steadily increasing due to the construction activity that's going on. So we've seen that everywhere. Construction activity has started increasing everywhere, which means that costs go up because there's more there's more people out there doing the work, more competition for the work. Lane County, we're saying, is now back to pre-recession levels as far as construction costs. Privately funded new infrastructure volume has grown rapidly since 2012, as well as that by other public agencies in our area. So program planning is really has to take that into account in planning projects, which means that we're trying to get our projects out earlier and earlier every year so that it makes it easier for our contractors to plan projects, because they do get more expensive the later in the year that you put those out. And then we'll just keep monitoring those trends to make sure that we're planning for that as we go forward. And then, I think that Katie after me will talk a little bit more about transportation and getting more into the details on pavement preservation programs. So depending on time, I don't know how much time I want to spend on that. Do you know how we're doing on time?
We've got about 15 minutes left.
Okay.
For this one,
So, I mean, I guess, I guess I'll just talk a little bit about the pavement preservation program. I don't want to completely steal Katie's thunder if she's going to talk about that. But the passage of the 2012 bond measure to fix the streets was the second of 5-year measures that the citizens have passed here. And this current one that we're in is providing funding through the 2018 construction season. So that is one thing that we're working on in Public Works, is trying to consider and work with the citizen member of the street review panel on, what is the future? Do we want to pursue a second bond measure, and what would that look like? And I'm open for any questions. This is
A third bond measure.
A third bond measure, sorry, yes. So this is my last slide. I didn't put up a real obvious, questions and comments slide to trigger you all to know when it's your turn to speak. But, but yeah, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you for your presentation. Garrett.
I just have a comment. Thank you very much for your presentation and for premeditating any questions I would have had.
Well, I try. But.
Josh and then John.
Well, and I guess I'm feeling like all my questions really are probably better handled in the transportation one. So, incredibly, I have no questions for you.
Okay.
I have 2 questions for you. So you talked about that you do the inspections of the sewer pipes, and I'm assuming eWeb does the water, but
right.
The sewer portion. Do you have, how much of the total system has been inspected in recent memory versus what percentage of it is in a acceptable or deteriorated condition? I mean, is there a forecast of how bad everything's leaking?
There is. I don't have that number right in front of me. I know that we have spent a significant amount of time updating our wastewater master plan. The last time that plan was published was 1992, so it's pretty old. And we're expecting to have that master plan updated by the end of this year, so in the next month or 2. And That will have some very definite information about what are the deficiencies in our system. The model that I showed a picture of there is relatively new. It's been something that we've been working on for the last 2 years or so. And it's been really phenomenal, the information that we're able to gather out of that, because not only does it have the lines that we've built, but we've installed flow monitors throughout the city so that we can measure what is the flow during dry seasons and what is the flow during wet season, and kind of see where that big difference is and be able to concentrate our efforts to maximize the work that we're doing. And it's as much as working on wastewater can be exciting, it's a really exciting time to be looking at that.
And I'm sorry, this isn't actually part of my second question, but do you have a, in advance of this coming out, do you have a grasp on, is this a major problem, or is this a problem that's within the capacity of your current budget?
No, it's not within our current budget. So I know that I would say that our current budget is probably about half of what we'd need over the next 20 years to be able to meet all our rehabilitation needs.
And then the second thing, totally separate, I think it's neat that you're doing the infiltration planters. I'm seeing them pop up all over the place. I think that's a neat solution to a problem. What research or information do you have as far as the effects that these have upon degradation of the subgrade and long-term pavement preservation? We're putting a bunch of additional water in places it didn't used to be. Are there any downsides to this?
So we really take that into consideration where we place these and how we build them. So often what you'll see on a lot of the planters that we put in around town, Eugene is kind of known for having a lot of clay soils that just don't drain very well. And so it's very unrealistic to expect that we'll get a lot of infiltration through the ground in those. And so we make accommodations so that water can percolate to a pipe system, for example. So sometimes there's a pipe system that's under that planter, or that if the water is just draining too slowly and it builds up in there, there's an overflow for it. And often those planters are a lot of times built with something that kind of protects the water from not draining directly into the roadway. But yeah, because obviously we don't want to spend a lot of time or money on rehabilitating roadways just to have them, get undermined by water sitting under them. So we do make a lot of efforts to make sure that we're designing those in such a way that we're not going to have that water ponding under the street.
Thank you.
Josh?
Just a quick clarifying question. You said in response there, you have half of the $20 million, or you'd need another $20 million. Right. I just want to make sure that all that is reflected in coming updates of the multi-year financial plan.
So I don't think that I surprised anybody by throwing that number
I
out.
just mean that, we have seen and have in the past reviewed in some detail the multi-year financial plan. It consists of a lot of transportation and other infrastructure elements.
And that was part of getting this master plan updated, and that's why we made such a push in the last couple of years of doing such a detailed model and doing such a massive update, or basically a rewrite of our wastewater master plan, so that we could get a good number of what our needs are. And I might have been a smidge premature throwing that number out, but I have a feeling that it's going to be pretty accurate when the final report comes out. And that number's kind of built on, I can't remember if it was a 20 or 30 year span. So it's not necessarily it needs to be double forever. But it was one of those things of, if we take what that total number is and just divide it out over the next 20, I think I used 20 years, that's what we came up with.
And the whole reason I ask is just that we did spend time with the multi-year financial plan before. I don't remember big
And I-
wastewater thing, so maybe that'll.
And I was specifically looking at the funds that have been dedicated to rehabilitation.
That's helpful.
Anyone else? All right. Then I'll entertain the motion to approve the infrastructure project management service profile. Who wants to move?
I'll make that motion.
Great, thanks,
Adopt it.
John. Second? Second by Scott. All in favor, raise your hand. Great, thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you.
Transportation.
Well, hello, and thank you for having us. We're going to be presenting the transportation service profile. My name is Katie Marwitz. I'm in Public Works Engineering. I'm a project manager, and also AICing right now as the program lead for the pavement preservation program.
I am Damon Joyner. I'm the surface maintenance supervisor in Public Works Maintenance. And I'll be speaking tonight about the operation and maintenance side of the transportation system profile. So just a highlight of the transportation system. As you see, we have a significant number of streets and alleys and mileage, sidewalks, shared use paths. The transportation system conservatively is estimated to have a value of over $500,000, or excuse me, $500 million. As part of the 543 miles of streets, we have 52 miles of asphalt unimproved streets. And what's not listed up there that Jennifer spoke about is over 12,000 access or ADA ramps as part of the system. On the traffic maintenance side, you will see we have anywhere from traffic signals to traffic and street name signs of almost 30,000 and street and path lights of almost 10,000. In addition, we have about 1,000 marked crosswalks. And we have over 600 miles of street markings, with 158 miles of that being striped bike lanes. Within the maintenance division, we have 37 FTE, and we cover a wide gamut of maintenance activities. They range from proactive to reactive, as you can well imagine. Pothole response might be reactive, and one of our performance measures is that we fill hazardous potholes within 48 hours. To the planned side, where we have a work plan each season for asphalt and concrete street repairs that can range from digging out a 5x5 area to curb repairs a half a block long. Our enhanced street repair program has been primarily focused on unimproved streets. That's been in place since 2008, and during that time we have overlaid over 100 street segments with that program. It's a very popular program with our residents. Currently, we are limited to $200,000 a year that we are spending on that program. But we've made a lot of good progress. Our recent pavement management report shows that 59% of those unimproved streets are in good condition with no treatment needed. However, more is needed. We have a little over $3 million of backlog on that unimproved street segments. Our pavement data management includes the pavement management report. That is produced annually, and it's available online. You may have seen a copy of it and be familiar with it, but it's a good source of information and additional details. Chris Gerard previously mentioned the coordination between the sidewalk program and urban forestry. We partner with them on virtually everything that we do, because as you can well imagine, most of the sidewalk impacts are related to trees. Here's just a highlight of the traffic maintenance activities, and it ranges from traffic signal maintenance and streetlight maintenance down to graffiti removal and transportation system plan review. As you can well imagine, engineering is doing project designs for both the capital projects and pavement preservation projects. We also have privately engineered public improvements that are coming in for private developments. And along with engineering reviewing those plans, maintenance wants to review those plans as well to make sure that what's constructed, not only does it meet the standards, but that we can maintain it in the future. Emergency response, some of those pictures are focused on winter events, and predominantly we see a lot of those events occurring during the winter with snow and windstorms and landslides. Previously, Chris spoke about the 2014 storm where we spent a significant amount of time, up to a month, of just picking up debris and clearing it out of the street. And that's another example of our partnership with other sections and even departments to make sure that we provide service to the public. Emergency traffic control, we work closely with our emergency operations folks. Police and fire, we provide support for them. And our staff is available 24/7, 365. We have staff on call outside of business hours, and within maintenance and parks and open space, we have supervisors that also carry an on-call phone, and they take a month at a time. Chris also spoke about parks and open space in the urban forestry section having 4 FTE for street maintenance. In total, between median maintenance, street tree maintenance, and parks planning, there's 10 FTE. And the median maintenance within Eugene covers 16.5 acres of landscaped medians. Operational funding, as you can see, about 80% of it comes from the State Highway Trust Fund, which includes state gas tax, weight fees, and vehicle registration fees, and that totals about $9.5 million out of the $12 million budget. A little over about 13% is right-of-way use fees, which is the 6% right-of-way fee on city stormwater and wastewater for use of the right-of-way. And that's about 1.6 million. And then the smallest share there, the other, is utility right-of-use permit fees and other small revenues of about $900,000. And that covers operation and maintenance, and Katie will talk about the other part.
Okay, so stepping back from the maintenance and operations side, I'm going to talk a little bit about the engineering and the capital improvement side of transportation. As it was mentioned before in Jennifer's infrastructure presentation, our work includes the preservation, maintenance, and expansion of several systems. Tonight I'm going to focus on just transportation. In engineering, we plan, design, and do construction management for those types of projects. The biggest segment of the work that we do in our work program is through the pavement preservation program. And the 2008 and the 2012 bond measures are part of that pavement preservation program. So this graph is a general pavement life cycle of a street. In an ideal world, we would keep all of our streets up in that top band of maintenance and repair, restoration, where it just takes minor but continual upkeep. In the pavement preservation program, we get the most bang for our buck when we catch streets in that middle rehabilitation band, where we can do an inlay or an overlay project that's really cost effective to extend the longevity of the street. As a street falls down into the reconstruction section, it just takes a lot more time, a lot more resource, and it's a lot more involved. But through the success of the bond measure, we have been able to tackle and take care of several streets that fall into that reconstruct category. Transportation planning is a really important part of engineering. Transportation and planning engages in really high-level planning discussions, and they're involved in a number of important projects and programs. Some of those are listed there on the screen, including Vision Zero and then the 2035 Transportation System Plan update. Jennifer also talked a little bit about sustainability, and I'm going to mention a number of the same things. But the importance of sustainability in our agency really allows us to be a little bit more progressive in some of the things that we try and do in pilot projects when there's a potential for a big sustainability benefit. Engineering continues to specify a number of these techniques, such as warm mix asphalt that Jennifer mentioned. Also the in-place recycling, which is full depth reclamation or in-place cement treated base. We're also continually working on increasing our RAP content, which is recycled asphalt pavement. We've had a number of pilot projects, even in just this last year, which we can continually up that number to see how we can best make it work. Let's see, where am I? In addition to just overall sustainability goals, the bottom line of cost is also a big driver in maximizing technology for us, and that leads to an example with the LED streetlight retrofit project. Last year, they replaced approximately 5,000 high-pressure sodium streetlight fixtures with the new LED fixtures, which consume about half of the power of the high-pressure sodium. And cost-benefit, it's estimated that that's going to have a payoff of only 6 years. And I think they are in talks to expand that to more fixtures throughout the city. I do want to talk a little bit about transportation funding as it relates to the pavement preservation program. As you can see from the graph, the bulk of our funding that we get for pavement preservation, not quite 70%, comes from the bond measure to fix streets. For FY17, that's about $8.3 million. We also have local gas tax, which is just under 25%. For FY17, that's going to be just over $3 million. We also get a small annual allocation of SDCs. And the other portion there is things like grants and state and federal dollars. So an important part of our work in transportation, both on the maintenance and operations side and the engineering side, is our community involvement and customer input. I know you've heard a lot about that tonight as well. We provide a tremendous amount of information to the public through a number of means, kind of traditional media channels and also more modern media channels that some other people have mentioned. Twitter, Facebook, we do a lot of online work. We also engage stakeholders and receive inputs from a number of groups as part of our public processes. And we also have the ability now where citizens can report a number of things directly to us through the online webpage. Whether it's an issue, there's a number of different options. They can report a pothole, they can report if there's something obstructing a bike lane, and that all can be done directly on the website, and that links to the maintenance management system that's been mentioned a couple other times tonight. So I wanted to touch briefly on some ongoing and emerging issues as related to transportation. One of them is the infrastructure maintenance backlog, and I'll talk a little bit more of that in detail here in just a minute. Transportation safety is and continues to be a focus. Infrastructure resiliency is a really broad and complex issue that involves moving pieces kind of throughout the agency. It's not just transportation specific, but it involves everybody in the organization. Implementing an intelligent transportation system would also help us suit us for future technology, advances in technology, I should say. And there also is a big need to address and implement a really sustainable maintenance revenue for the long term. We've heard some other people mention maintenance, and it's an ongoing issue that we need to solve. So moving back and touching on that infrastructure maintenance backlog that I mentioned, this graph is in the service profile publication that you have. It really shows the positive effect of the 2008 and 2012 bond measures. I think it graphically represents, where we started, what we've done up till now, where we're going, and then the big uncertainty of we're here, but with the uncertainty moving forward, where does that leave us? So some numbers associated with the graph. The maintenance backlog was estimated to be $171 million in 2008. We then had the very successful first bond measure. And as Jennifer mentioned, we had really good construction prices during that recession period, and were able to add a number of streets to that bond. Then at the conclusion of that bond measure, the backlog was estimated to be reduced down to $100 million. And then at the end of 2015, it was estimated that that backlog was down to $79 million. And we anticipate that'll be lower by the end of certainly this year, then as we move on towards the conclusion in 2018.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but just as clarification, because I think probably some of us have also, I know I've heard on a number of occasions, Corey and others present this, not from the standpoint of percentage of improved streets needing repairs, but just a dollar value of deferred maintenance, and our chipping away at that. I mean, are those pretty much the same? I mean,
they are the same. I think that in our in the measures that we have, one of the things it addresses, it talks about the percentage, and I think that's what's represented here. But I also wanted to provide the information on the actual dollar figure that shows, we've made a significant dent in the backlog, and we continue to do so.
Okay, great, thank you.
So as we conclude, I just wanted to point out a number of these other resources that are available. Some of them are updated annually, and they contain a lot of additional information about the work that we do as it relates to transportation, including the draft 2035 Transportation System Plan that's still underway, and the 2016 Pavement Management Report will be available shortly. We know the most recent one is available on the website for your review. And then from there, we would like to open it for discussions and questions.
Thank you. Josh.
Huge fan of what you do. I wish we kept track of, like there was a leaderboard for the people who had most forwarded the pavement preservation report, because I think I'd be in the top 5 for sure. But the serious part of that is that I want to make sure that we are doing the things that inform the public and give the public confidence to make sure that we actually renew the bond measure when that does come up, so we can continue making necessary investments. And one thing that I've been struck by in talking to people in the community is that people really have, they're often very excited about infrastructure projects that we've done, road projects in particular. In fact, they're almost uniformly excited about that. But they have no sense of the prioritization. And I'm pretty sure that you guys aren't like using a magic 8-ball to decide which streets to do next. I'm quite sure. But I think that is, although people are generally confident in the program and really appreciate the improvements and have voted for it twice, by increasing numbers the last time, I worry about that prioritization sense, that people are not as confident in the way we're doing it. And this is actually a problem that I don't want us to get complacent about, because it grows worse over time, because we do more projects, so people have more opportunities to project a narrative onto that and say, oh, I mean, I hear things like, well, we haven't done this street, but we've done that street 3 times since I've lived here. And usually that's not, I mean, when the few times that I've gone and like looked that up, it's never been the case that we'd actually done a street gratuitously 3 times in 5 years or whatever. But I'm wondering if there is something in here, if there's some other performance measure, maybe it's in customer satisfaction, maybe it's just a strategy in here, but something that we can do to much more effectively communicate that there is a prioritization going on and this is what it is. I don't know how much granular detail that needs to get into for people, but it seems important to me. And again, as I said, it gets more important over time as we have sort of grabbed the low-hanging fruit and are now sort of, you know, we've covered most arterials, that sort of thing. So, yeah, what do you think?
I can speak to that a little bit. I'm going to go back to the graph about the pavement life cycle. And I appreciate what you have to say, and we actually get that question quite a lot. We have people call us and say, you know, why are you doing this street and not this street? But we also get a fairly good response from them if we meet with them or even just on the phone and we talk to them about how the payment life cycle works. They're really bang for our buck. We can get 5 or 6 or more overlay projects done for the cost of one reconstruction project. So, but it is a prioritization, and we don't ignore the reconstruction projects forever, but it is a balancing act of how are we, you know, good stewards of the funds that we have, whether that's the bond measure or the gas tax, and also making sure that we're being equitable in what types of projects and where. So
Equitable, you mean spreading it around the
yes,
city? Yeah.
Because certainly it wouldn't make sense for us to do all of our projects in one area. So we do have a prioritization, and I agree we could do more to try to communicate that.
Yeah, and again, I don't know what easy performance measure it is. If it's like number of calls, outraged calls you receive or something like that. But it'd be great to figure out how to weave that in. Because I mean, you guys know, for every call you're getting, there are probably 5 people who didn't bother to call but are sort of carrying that narrative with them.
Right.
And that's what I worry about when we're going to vote on the next bond measure.
And certainly, I would say a number of the calls that we get aren't outrage calls. The number of outrage calls is actually really small. It's mostly.
Well, then you
people
should
who
definitely show a graph of that.
level of outrage related to calls. But we get a really good response when we explain how it works and how we're trying to be really responsible with the funds that we have.
Okay, thanks.
So I put myself in the queue. I don't know if this falls under your purview, but do you guys deal with the speed bumps that go on streets?
So transportation planning is usually the lead when it comes to neighborhoods who are requesting the kind of speed calming, but I'd be happy to hear your question. And
I was just curious how those get to, who decides, or how the process of deciding to put those in. I live in the Harlow neighborhood, and we've seen several streets get those recently, and it's just been interesting to see how that just diverts traffic to the next street over, which happens to be my street.
Well, as I said, transportation planning deals with it, and I can speak to it on a broad level, and then I can provide you the contact information for the person who handles it. But I know that in general, a request will come in to transportation planning for somebody to evaluate it, whether they say, I need speed bumps on or speed humps, speed cushions, whatever they might be. And then they have a real formalized process that they go through. So it's consistent to everybody. They typically do a speed study to look at, what are the speeds in the neighborhood? Is there a perceived speeding problem, or how big is the issue? And then there's also community involvement in that process that requires a certain number of people to be in support of those being installed. So that's an overview of the process, and afterwards I'm glad to give you the contact information if you have questions.
It's just been an interesting unintended consequences situation, because
Right.
I don't deny that there was a speeding issue on the street that they got put in on, but it just has been like, oh, let's just push it over. But yeah. Cool. Any other questions or discussion? Josh?
Yeah, I'm wondering why transportation doesn't have some parallel performance measures to what project management had regarding like cost of design compared to contract cost, and then what was the kind of so there was that soft cost one, and then there was there were like two of these measures. Why am I blanking on that? Do you know what I mean? Like two, and maybe Jennifer, if you want to chime in. I'm trying to remember what they were, but they're both basically sort of implementation efficiency measures.
So my guess is that because the payment preservation program is such a big piece of our project management service.
Oh, it's captured
that
already.
it's captured
Yeah, okay.
already.
Dumb
I
question.
mean, there'd be a big overlap and you'd just be repeating the kind of the same data.
Okay. And there's nothing that would be left out?
I don't think so.
Okay, okay.
One that's similar and corollary though on the maintenance side is they do capture the kind of the amount of funds they spend per lane mile or per street mile for the maintenance. So that would be something that's of similar, but capturing different information, but in a similar way.
Okay, thanks.
One quick question. So looking at your percentage of improved streets needing repair graph that you had, I'm actually kind of surprised at how quickly, after the bonds run out, that percentage, the speed at which it, it gets right back up to where it was at, essentially the, 2008, timeframe. Is there a maintenance aspect, or is that just other streets are deteriorating now, Or is there something that if we did better on the maintenance side that we could tilt that back down to a slower climb?
And I think that's a projection, not a known fact. But yeah, part of the reason that it continues to go up is because it's the maintenance of the street has to be an ongoing, perpetual issue. So even streets that, we made repairs to in some form or fashion maybe 10 years ago or 12 years ago, by the time the bond expires, then those are going to be in the 15, 16, 17, and then not too far away, those are going to be 20-year-old rehabs, which typically we would want to address then again. So I think there are opportunities to work on the maintenance of those streets, but it's going to require us, again, as you see up at the top, it's going to take more effort continually to have that stay in that maintenance, repair, restoration, and not have them fall.
So I guess what I'm alluding, so fundamentally, there is not enough money on the maintenance side to maintain the streets and not get further behind,
In the absence of the bond
In
money.
the absence of the bond money.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, good point.
Just to add to that, it's more than the bond measure, it's the bond. I think somewhere in here we talk about, and this is from years past, that we would need 18 million a year to manage the pavement system in perpetuity, but even with the bond measure, I think we're at like 12 million a year. So the bond measure was always intended to be part of the package, but not the entire package. So it was the bond measure, the local gas tax, the reimbursement component of the transportation SDC. And at one time, we were looking at a street utility as well.
But there is an identified number in there somewhere that,
Right.
If we got it down to the 20% number, if you had 18 million or whatever, then in theory, you bounce along at that 20% mark.
And it's listed at the end of the infrastructure capital preservation under operating environment, that it says the $18 million annually. And then that we estimate would eliminate the reconstruction backlog in about 10 years.
Thank you.
Anyone else? So it sounds like if folks agree with Josh, we'd have a motion to approve the service profile with a recommendation to include some sort of performance measure or strategy around communicating the prioritization of projects. Is that right?
Yeah, well put.
Okay, so do we have a motion? Josh?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Garrett. All in favor, raise your hand. Great. Yeah. Transportation service profile is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to take a couple of minutes to see if anyone has any questions or comments as we wrap up. Yeah?
What will the process be for the departments that we said we'd like to communicate further with about looking at re-examining their process?
In terms of the service profiles, or?
In regards to the decisions we made on sustainability, transportation, and communication.
So Twyla, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we make the recommendation that they update their profile, and they do that on their own. They don't come back to us, is that right?
Correct. They won't actually come back to the committee for 4 years. Sometimes, though, there can be a communication to the budget committee, but generally, they will, if it's something they can do immediately, they'll update that and you'll get a new, their service profiles are posted online on our budget website. In some cases, if it's not something they can implement right away, I'm thinking of the first group that came, there might be a communication later, but they wouldn't actually come back before the committee to present to you for 4 years.
Okay. So I guess my real question is then, is there a way other than just not doing it or doing it that way that we can engage, particularly with the first group that I'm referring to, communications and sustainability, that there's some sort of back and forth that happens? Does that make sense?
So it sounds like I'm hearing a request that they get back to us when they're able to implement the changes.
Yeah, and even more so, maybe have some sort of dialogue, because I don't know how productive it might be for us to just kind of shout at them and then they just come back with another thing without too much, well, here are the specifics of what we're hearing from the community.
One suggestion might be that they could provide some communication and an update to you, perhaps in a memo or something to start, so they can give you an update on their progress and when they get to that point in time, and then we can revisit, you know, as we move forward, you know, seeing what they propose and the information you get, you know, we could go from there. But typically, there's not a continual back and forth on the service profiles.
Okay. So last question to that end. Can we address or set a timeline to this sort of thing? I want to conclude, basically for myself and probably some of the other members, just have some closure on this thing that we opened up that still kind of feels like it's open.
So I'll let Twyla speak to that as well, but I think the service profiles, the presentations are an opportunity for the budget committee to give input, but we're not like the final say in what they have in them.
Okay.
Right, and I just to add to that, I think typically when there are changes and recommendations and they incorporate them, those are posted online. You know, there's a communication. We can send a communication so you can see what's happening. You know, there may be one here that's a little longer term, but typically, yeah, it's not. That's a little different situation than the typical cycle and communication on these profiles.
Great, thank you, guys.
Josh.
I completely second the line of questioning and the intent, and I would just ask that we do get some sort of response back when something gets incorporated. In the past, we have heard a little bit about how the recommendations were treated. I think that's helpful for us, I mean, just as citizen budget committee members, because then we'll sit here with council in spring, and it's good for us to know what sort of response there was to the recommendations we made. So, gesturing toward the chair, if you can make sure that we hear back on whatever timeline makes sense for staff. And I understand it'll be different for different groups, but I think it's pretty important for us to keep some sort of loop. And I'm not suggesting endless back and forth dialogue, but just one more back and forth, or fourth. We've done the back.
Sounds good.
And
I think maybe a tentative plan of when we come back in the spring, we can just get an update whether things have been addressed or not. Does that sound fair, if not sooner?
Well, and what I'll say is one of the things I was going to add before we left is staff is currently working with the executive team on the process for your winter and spring meetings. So, and we're going to be working on that and then working with the chair and the vice chair on finalizing that before we communicate dates and kind of give you the gist of what's happening. So we can certainly talk about that as we look at that process and figure out the best way to get information in a meaningful way to this group.
Does that work for everyone? Okay, great. Josh.
Just because I was a slacker and was not here at the previous meeting, for which I apologize, much to your relief, though, I'm sure. I do want to say I really appreciate the memo from staff related to the recommendation about the corporate software upgrade. And I just wanted to sort of acknowledge that openly and say that I hope we can have some other update in winter, like before spring meetings happen, of some kind. And just, I would also say, I would ask the sort of the chair and staff to figure out if there's a good way for us to provide input of examples that we find elsewhere. Since those discussions in spring, I've had a number of people send me examples from other communities, and I'll forward those along, but it'd be nice to figure out whether we need to discuss them in a budget committee meeting, or if we have a separate group, meet with staff. I'll totally defer to chair and staff to figure out the best way to do that. But it was, I know when I talked to Christy, she was like, this sounds great. What exactly do you mean? So now we might have some examples of what we mean by having different models of budget transparency that are sort of outward facing toward the public, and how that might relate to the IT back end.
Thanks. Anyone else have any questions, comments? All right, then we'll be in touch once we get the process nailed down, so you'll know what's coming up in the spring. All right, we're adjourned.
There we go there. Yeah, just go ahead.
Thank you, Jan. Who's
Free of charge, yes. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Anybody else wishing to speak that didn't sign up? Okay, we're hearing none. We'll close that part of the meeting, and we'll move on to item 6, MPO issues. 6A is the Regional Transportation Plan update. Paul, this is it met the mandatory inch-thick part of our agenda. So this is a minor revision. It has red lines and highlights. It's not a complete ground-up rewrite. So it's so there's red line changes and highlights of new sections be added. Again, this is our first hit of this, and here you go, Mia.
I have one of these.
And it's for our feedback. It'll come back as a final draft, which will go out to public in December, and then we'll have approval in either January or February. So I encourage all the jurisdictions to check with their own staff on what's in here, and they've all looked at it. What's not included in here, and if you'll read through it in Chapter 3, there's numerous blank pages. Pages 14 through 23 are just blank. That's where the projects list is going to be, which will have the project descriptions and the dollars associated with them. Those are in progress. They are the accumulation of all of our TSPs, and the Eugene one, for instance, is just now out in draft form just a little while ago. So those are not yet ready, but by the time we get it out in December, those pages will be filled in, so they'll be in the next draft. All right. Stole your thunder, Paul. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I have a few more things to say. Thank you. So, as Councilor Zelenka noted, in your packet is a pre-draft, if you will, of chapters 1 through 4 of the current RTP, redlined with the changes that are necessary or desired in order to accomplish a limited scope minor update of this RTP that brings it into alignment with the current local plans and the current federal requirements. So as we've told you many months ago, this is a very limited scope update to the RTP. There are a number of reasons for that. The primary one is that the FAST Act, the new federal transportation legislation, came out fairly recently, and as a result of that FAST Act, there is a whole set of new requirements around performance measures and benchmarks that will be required of the MPO's long-range plan, and there's no completion of the rulemaking or guidance for that yet. So those new regulations that we have to reflect in this long-range plan are still being developed by the federal government, and as a matter of fact, once they're developed, they then have to go through, they have to be met by the state DOT before we even consider setting them as MPOs. So we have to do an RTP update on a certain cycle, and we had to do this minor update in order to not go beyond that time frame. It's the next RTP update that will get in depth into changing things in here wholesale to the extent you desire. What is before you in this red line version, again, is the four text chapters of the RTP. Everything else that's in the RTP is appendices, it's maps, it's supporting data, there's an appendix that's the glossary. All of those things are not likely to change a lot. And as Councilor Lincoln noted, I wanted to point out that in Chapter 3, where there's blank pages, that's where the project lists will go. We didn't put those in this version today because the project lists are going through their final quality control, if you will. We have been working with your local jurisdiction staff